Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
Kathy, I'm about to tell you something that I never told any girl on a first date. But I think it's important that you know I like to wear women's clothes. I like to wear women's clothes. Panties, brasiers, sweaters, pumps. It's just something I do. And I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I really like you and I don't want it getting in the way down the road.
Does this mean you don't like podcasting with girls?
No, I love podcasting with girls.
Well, not today.
That's my favorite dialogue exchange in the movie.
No, I mean, it's good. I just Lugosi, you know?
You could have done Lugosi.
That's podcast, this motherfucker.
Right, exactly.
No one gives two fucks about podcasting.
Pull the strings. Pull the podcast. I don't know.
Podcast that. No, you know what?
Pod the cast.
Pod the cast.
Pod the cast.
Beware. Beware.
I always here's the thing I hate.
Go ahead.
This is one of my 5 favorite movies. I'm just out with it.
I love this
movie. This is top 5 for me all timer.
I love this movie too.
I'm with you. I love it too.
This is a wonderful movie.
I feel like unfairly now, a lot of this film's legacy is Samuel Jackson is constantly shit-talking the fact that Martin Landau beat him.
It certainly was for a while. I think it's gone past that.
What was
he used to complain he was up for Pulp Fiction.
Oh.
And he used to complain Ed Wood, no one even saw that thing. Come on. I gave one of
the most iconic performances of all time. Who even talks about Martin Landau and Ed Wood? And it's I talk about it literally every day of my life.
It's the performance that you could imagine beating almost anyone.
And the hard thing about it is Samuel L. Jackson's never going to get another swing.
No.
At an award.
Probably not.
He probably, how many
how
many more movies did he have ahead of him?
He gets so few bites at the apple.
I know, right? Exactly. Martin Landau was only 95 years old.
Here are 2 crazy facts. 1, Martin Landau lived another 20 years after this movie.
He was
nuts. He did lie.
He was pretty old.
He lived to 99.
Oh, really?
He made it a long.
No, he lived to 89.
Really?
Yeah.
He looked about 99.
He was an old man.
Wait a second. He was 35 in Ed Wood?
He was sort of Martin Landau, much like Bela Lugosi, is a cartoon Eastern European that you kind of can't believe was a real person.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Landau was kind of a cartoon old guy.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. I only think of him as an old guy. You see pictures of him in, you see him in Mission Impossible.
Excuse me.
Right.
Space 1999?
Space 1999. You're like, oh, right, he was young.
That's my default Landau.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Space 1999.
Okay, fair enough. I would think more of Mission Impossible.
Who's yours? Crimes and misdemeanors?
No, it's Ed Wood.
Ed Wood.
Yeah.
For me, it's
default.
Probably Crimes and Misdemeanors.
No, but see, he disappears into this role.
You like leading Landau, though. That's why you like Space 1999.
He doesn't look like Martin Landau in this movie.
Well, that's it. This movie,
it's kind
it wins
of
2
amazing.
Oscars. It wins Landau and the makeup, which is one of the least showy and most effective makeup jobs in film history.
It's crazy.
It's incredible how well they transform him without it looking like a Sacha Baron Cohen character.
Right.
Where it's his face doesn't move. He looks like he's made of rubber. And they have dramatically different faces.
Yeah, Martin Landau has such a very distinctive face.
And Bela Lugosi has a very distinctive face. And there's a thing on the...
It's such a good job that he can watch a movie with the real Bela Lugosi.
They intercut the real footage.
Right, and you're like, yeah, it's Bela Lugosi.
Well, also, he was supposed to be a withered shell of himself.
Run down.
But it looks like that's a withered shell of that real guy there. On the DVD, on the special features, they have a whole thing with Rick Baker, and he was like, I love Lugosi.
Sure.
I was really honored that Tim reached out to me and offered me this thing. And I said, this is impossible. These are fundamentally different faces.
Sure.
Right.
Lando has this very long face.
He's got a long sort of Frankenstein-y shape
with
to his
a very
face.
pronounced upper lip.
It got long because he was in that low gravity environment for so long.
Space 1999.
Space 1999.
You're going to hijack this and just party like it's Space 1999.
I don't know if I've ever
episode.
seen that much Space 1999.
Not a lot was made,
right?
And I'm pretty sure I saw all of it, but not.
What was the concept?
It was the runoff Battlestar, 1999. Right?
It was well before Battlestar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was it Jerry Anderson?
It was
crazy. Wait, it was fully live action Jerry Anderson.
It was post Thunderbirds.
Yeah. Only Barbara Bain was a marionette. Weirdly, she's like, I'll take the press photos, but I'll be a marionette in the show.
Is it like a space station show?
Oh, here's the premise.
Okay.
Space station, Moonbase Alpha on the moon.
Moonbase.
And then there's a bad explosion. The moon gets kicked out of orbit.
And
dear. Is traveling through the cosmos.
But we're still circling the moon.
No, Earth is left behind.
Okay.
It's not very scientific. Because their whole premise is, how are we going to get the moon back to Earth when they should have figured out, Earth is finished now.
That's it. We got to go.
We're done.
You know the story about when Jerry Anderson pitched Landau Space 1999, right?
No, I do not know it.
He asked Landau to come visit him on the Thunderbird set, and he was like, it's going to be like this. It's a show. You'll be the leading man voicing it, but it's going to be all puppets. And Landau said, pull the strings, and I'm in. Hello, everybody. My name's Griffin Newman. Pull the string. There you go. Pull the string.
Pull the strings.
Pull the string.
Pull the string.
What's your name?
Oh, David Sims. I'm sorry.
It's Blank Check with Griffin.
I was so horrified by your joke that I was like trying to reset it myself.
Ghoulishly scary joke. This is a podcast about filmographies. Directors who have massive success early on in their career and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want.
Certainly. Like Ed Wood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tim Burton at this point is firmly in this sort of one for me, one for them mode. But all his ones for me were also very expensive and done on a major studio level.
Sure.
And this was the first one where he really had to like fight to make a movie that seemed aggressively uncommercial.
Right. And was.
Right. But he was like such a big populist studio filmmaker. He had like somehow made these very esoteric interests of his into like very mainstream things.
Right. You're saying like Edward Scissorhands, no one's going to say like, oh, that's a surefire box office success. And then it was.
Right.
So this, I guess he could be like, well, no one thought Edward Scissorhands would work. This will work.
Yes.
Yeah. People will go to see Ed Wood.
But like no one wanted to make this fucking movie.
No.
And then it did poorly. But it's my favorite film of his. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's also my
That's
favorite
the thing that surprised. I didn't realize it was a bomb.
It was a huge bomb.
Huge bomb.
Until because I was a grown up when this movie came out. Yeah, I'm a very old man.
Where did you see it?
By the way, my name's John Hodgman.
Oh, John Hodgman's here.
Yes, John Hodgman.
Judge John Hodgman, the Honorable, is sitting here.
Host of the Judge John Hodgman podcast, co-star of The Tick Season 2.
Oh, my God.
Hey.
With Griffin Newman.
You're like the big new character.
Wait, when is this posting? Now I'm going to check.
Sometime in 2019.
February or March?
Early February. February the 3rd.
A premiere date? No.
No, I've heard conflicting rumors.
Okay.
You know what's good?
Quarter 1, 2019.
When you hear conflicting thing.
I love it. I'm
That's
not
always a sign of
stressed at all. I haven't been losing sleep for months.
Now you get your sleep.
Yeah.
I worry
know,
about you.
I'm trying.
You have to understand, it's hard for them to press the button to put the thing on the stream.
It's so tough.
It takes a while for them to get to the room, the button room.
Yes. And to be
plan
fair,
a whole thing.
They're on a very rushed post-production schedule of 9 months. We finished filming season 2, I think, in 1984.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't.
No, it wasn't that. When it comes out, it'll be a while. But you're phenomenal on the show.
Well, you're an incredible actor.
Well, come on, you're an incredible actor.
As I said on set, apparently.
You said to me, I want you to know
this line.
You said, I think you're a very good actor. And I said, oh, come on. And you said, no, I mean it. And I know about acting because I've seen Murder on the Orient Express. Yeah. That was your line.
Was that really my line? I
that
thought
was
you were
your
making
line.
a joke about
no,
that.
No. You said, I just watched it on a plane, so I know about acting.
That was a very important movie-going experience for me, watching Murder on the Orient Express on a plane.
Had you just watched... Right, you were... Oh, see, you had literally just ingested the Orient Express.
I opened my mouth.
You'd taken the ride.
Why isn't there a ride?
You'd boarded the train.
Why isn't there a theme park?
God. Universal should open a whole Poirot land.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are they doing a Marple-verse or, like a Christie-verse?
They're doing a Poirot follow-up. They are doing Death on the
Nile, yes.
You could get in that. You should be in that, John.
Can you imagine, like, we're in Cairo or something, and it's like you've got a fan.
Sir. Yeah. You're holding him, running after him with a telegram. Sir.
You're wearing a khaki suit.
Thank you very much. I'm a little old to play a bellhop. It would be
not a bellhop. I'm saying like his Sala or something.
It would be a sad bellhop.
I'm saying like a Peter Ustinov type. Well, I guess Ustinov played
Ustinov
Poirot.
Was Poirot, and he was my Poirot.
Right.
Sure.
But I'm thinking
much like Space 1999 was your Landau.
Yes.
That was my Landau.
And Ustinov was your Poirot.
But I remember that somehow... I did not manage to see Black Panther when it came out that week, but I did manage to see Murder on the Orient Express on an airplane. And I realized for a straight white only child from Brookline, Massachusetts,
that's your Black Panther.
That was my Black Panther.
That was your Black Panther.
Yeah.
And
Murder on the Orient Express is like, finally someone sees me.
Right. And it was received as such by the culture, as a massive moment. for representation in American media. Yeah.
Well, sorry, I don't want to say sidetrack.
Sure.
But that was a sidetrack.
No, I'm not saying a bellhop, but I feel like his like Sala. You know?
Uh-huh.
Like, I want you to be playing the Josh Gad role in this movie.
Imagining
I think we gotta plus it up.
You should be like the mayor or the local,
dignitary,
commissioner, exactly.
Mayor of the Nile.
They go to an office or a palace or something, and you're sitting there behind a desk.
I do a lot of desk work.
Yeah,
you're flapping a fan
in streaming media, film and television.
Yeah,
that's all that. I'm mostly known for my desk work.
I think desk work is good.
Also, check out my incredible back of the head acting in the Nick season 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, really? incredible.
Your big thing, and no spoilers, but your big thing in Tick season 2, you kind of redefined clipboard acting.
Oh, you noticed?
This man holds the shit out of a clipboard in Tick season 2.
It's actually a tablet that kept.
It was like
a high tech
that kept freezing up.
That kept freezing up, or like
it'll go to the whole screen or something. Yeah.
Anyway, we had a great time.
We had a great
together.
time.
I became a true blanky checkhead during that time.
So you're
saying, David, I met you at a wedding. Nice to see
that's
you
true. Nice. You were the DJ.
I was the DJ.
You did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Although the greatest moment was the bride freaking out at you when you were moving on from one song so soon. That I thought that was very funny because you were doing a very professional job. You were like, fading in and out of things, and you were, it was like
I was trying to keep it moving.
Yeah, exactly. But then there was one song that I guess the bride.
Yeah, well, I guess it's her special day.
Right. Was like, no. We must finish this one. Yep. And you were a good DJ. You're like, oh, of course.
I was like, you know what? Fine. I put it on repeat over and over, and I walked away. Fine.
You threw your headphones to the ground.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, Landau. So this is what I was saying. I was an elderly man.
Sure.
I mean, I was a grown man then.
When
prime
this
of
came
my
out.
life, 1994.
Yeah.
23 years old.
I remember reading about it. I'm a young man. I remember reading about
me going to see the movie?
Yeah, that you were just killing it, prime of your life.
September 30th, was this a good month for you? September 1994?
1994. So, yeah, I just moved to New York.
There you go.
New York City in January of that year.
All right.
And now I'm trying to remember. Maybe I saw it at the Chelsea
I was
Theater.
going to say, yeah. Did you see it in a theater?
What's now the Sinopolis?
Yeah. That
which
one
used to be a United Artists, I believe.
Sure. I don't.
The 23rd.
23rd
Street. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's where I was seeing a lot of movies. There were a bunch of movie theaters up on the Upper West Side where I lived. I was 105th Street and Broadway, so there were a couple of movie theaters.
Oh, the 84th and Broadway,
classic 84th,
of course.
But there was
the New Yorker theater, but that closed when I was a kid. Because I used to live up there. Yeah. I don't know. There were others.
The only place you lived as a kid.
That's right. We're not talking about where you lived as a kid.
We lived in New York, and that's the end of the story, and we can move on.
Lived in New York.
Yeah.
That's must have been.
I did.
Amazing to have spent your whole childhood in New York
City.
City.
The whole time, the entirety of it. Classic downtown Griffey Nams.
No, Brookline, Massachusetts. This is the big time.
Oh,
it was the big time.
You must have really seen a different way of life.
Right. So you see the movie.
I'm not rising to this bait.
I loved it.
You're a 99 head. Landau is back.
But I'm at this point in my life, I'm a huge Tim Burton fan and supporter.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, I guess I am now.
Sure.
He's not the filmmaker that he was.
But that was a miracle.
In the day, right? He'd done the Batmans and Edward Scissorhands, and this is an exciting new, right?
And Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Pee-wee,
of
course.
And
Beetlejuice.
And this was like, this movie seemed like such a step forward.
Yes.
And how he was going to direct movies.
It felt like a big evolution.
And then I guess he decided that was wrong.
Well, it's his first movie about real people.
Yeah.
Like, no offense to Pee-wee or Beetlejuice or whatever. These are humans who have regular needs and
he
desires.
did a good job with humans.
He did a great job.
It's his first grown-up movie.
And he brings aboard like Johnny Depp.
It's as close as Johnny Depp has ever gotten to playing a human.
I think it's Depp's best performance.
Oh, I do too. Is that even
incredible? In this movie.
I guess he's given a lot of performances. This is my favorite.
This is his real in the pocket couple of years because Donnie Brasco is probably his best.
He's so good in Donnie Brasco,
like serious movie, like fully serious performance.
That's him, like going for it, being like, "Pay attention to me. I am a serious actor.
I'm walking here."
He is walking.
He was walking.
He's walking all over Donnie Brasco.
Yes,
Donnie Brasco's sitting in a chair most of the time. He's doing some chair work. Actually,
chair work.
That's a lot of Pacino chair work. Yeah.
But this is like, this feels like a performance that only this one actor at this one period of time before he became a wine vampire, could have given.
And European rock star.
General all around creep.
Yeah.
But yeah, this performance feels like, I mean, I think this is when he sort of becomes like, for a certain group of people, the guy. Like, this is kind of the weirdest, most interesting leading man.
He's got Dead Man the next year, too. He's so good in the 90s.
He's like really in this run.
He has a very cool run in the 90s. Because Gilbert Grape is the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Then, the next year is Dead Man and Don Juan DeMarco, which is a nice little movie.
I don't like this at all.
Well,
now that I'm seeing you rattle this
stuff
stuff off.
You don't like that he's got the pooter.
And he's looking at a computer.
Well, otherwise it's going to be a lot of like
when
what did he do?
Yeah.
Come on.
When I'm making dinner, listening, and I have you in my head.
You think it's off the dome?
I feel like it's totally off the dome.
But it's not.
It's off the pad.
It's not all off the pad. Look, he's roasting me now. Now I feel roasted.
Yeah.
Wait,
no, it's good. I'm glad to know that you're human.
I'm
it really
truly
I mean,
human.
Okay. It makes me feel more comfortable.
Humbling.
If you prick me,
so I see this movie.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing film.
A wonderful
film. A huge step forward for him.
Mm-hmm.
A really enjoyable film. Gets a huge amount of critical attention.
Yes.
I grew up in the 90s believing this movie did good.
Yeah.
I did not know until yesterday that it did bad.
It did badly. It did poorly. It was like critically acclaimed across the board.
Right.
Pretty much
it won Oscars,
acclaim.
which any studio
it
loves
won
to win
2
an Oscar.
Oscars,
Yeah.
and in a very competitive year. I mean, 94, that was the Forrest Gump quiz show, Pulp Fiction, Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, there's a world where I guess a less crowded year Ed Wood would have maybe gotten some more nominations and all that.
Samuel L. Jackson was robbed that year, I believe.
Well,
grand larceny.
His big thing was like, look, I gave this performance that was so iconic. Yeah, and they gave it to Lando as a Lifetime Achievement Award. I think you watched this. This is not a Lifetime Achievement performance.
No.
This isn't just a guy showing up and this isn't Donna Metche in Cocoon.
No.
Where you're like, oh, he's charming.
Right.
This is like such a fucking real deal performance.
A huge career
and a really tricky performance.
Well, also the thing was Samuel L. Jackson is a quasi lead anyway.
Agreed.
And they ran him in supporting because they were running Travolta as the lead.
But they have equal screen time, right? They
must. So they were kind of just like splitting the difference, and like that may have done him in. I don't know. Like Tom Hanks was probably always going to win Best Actor.
This is why I always said on set. How many times did I say this? Awards bullshit.
Awards literally, you said
Can
it
I curse on
during.
this?
Yes, you can curse. You said it during every take.
Yeah,
which we lost a lot of good footage.
So sometimes I try to be polite and just ruin my own takes.
Yes. Right. No, you would often do it during our lines. You would step over our lines to say awards bullshit.
Quick word, awards are bullshit.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Don't let this, Peter Serafinowicz, don't let awards get into your head. They're bullshit.
Well, I got irritated, but he was surprisingly fine with it because he's so comfortable in that costume. He was like, please eat up as much time as you want.
Yeah.
I can go all day.
Yeah. Work talk.
Oh, God.
And we met at a wedding, David.
We did meet at a wedding. That's true.
So
of 2 blank check guests. It was a blank check wedding.
We won't say who.
Yeah, it's a total mystery, I guess.
Let's do some cross calculation and figure out which 2 blank check guests are now married.
If you're listening now and you've figured it out, go to your if you have your grid of blank check guests.
Yeah.
And you've been drawing all the connections. You should be able to figure this out.
Right.
Send in your guests. The first top 3 guesses will get an Audio Boom mug that they can share.
And a decoder ring.
Yes.
Right.
We're going to start making decoder rings.
So what happened when this movie didn't do good?
Won an Oscar. 2 Oscars.
But I mean, when it became a commercial failure, what happened with Tim Burton after that?
Burton is already working on his next project, which he sees as like a sister to this movie, Mars Attacks.
Mars Attacks.
And I guess they're thinking like, oh, well, that'll play.
That was the thing. Mars Attacks, I think they viewed as an obvious home run. They were like, he's going to make a big disaster film. And he was like, I just got off of making Ed Wood. I want to make a modern version of that sort of type of sci-fi movie.
Right.
And then that was so expensive.
Right.
And bombed harder in relation to its budget.
Sure.
And then I think he starts
is not critically appreciated.
No, it wasn't at the time.
Certainly
I think now it started to build more head of steam.
Well, if
you
listen to Paul F. Tompkins, it's a modern masterpiece.
Well, we'll never listen to him, especially not on the subject of Mars
He's
Attacks.
not welcome here.
No, he's not welcomed here. Much like you were not welcomed here. But I think that's when he really starts to get scared.
Okay.
And it is a thing where
I think this is the origin of his more craven, like,
where it starts to
direction.
come do the Tim Burton take on things.
You
Because
know,
then the run
Planet of the
is
Apes. I mean,
Sleepy Hollow, Planet of the Apes, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like
Right.
now it's like do a Tim
Right.
Burton take on a thing that everyone
That's
already
when
knows.
it all feels like you're just putting on a thick paint of gothic emo gloss.
Yes.
Right.
On other stories.
You're throwing his aesthetic sensibilities onto things we already know.
And there was the initial excitement of like, oh, I'd love to see a Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Became
Yeah.
like, oh God, we're gonna have to see a Tim Burton like Alice in Wonderland. You know, it became just sort of resigned. Like,
Right.
oh God,
Oh, here we go.
Helena Bonham Carter's gonna be in it. You know,
So at some point or another, someone's going to wear red and white stockings.
Right. But there's this thing, I feel like I talk about this with people all the time where they say like, so why does that actor like still do all these shitty movies? Or like, why does that director make those choices? Like people will ask me, like genuinely, I don't understand why Bruce Willis is doing this, you know?
Right.
And my answer is always, I think if you're ever like at the very top, it gets scary to lose it.
Yeah.
Even if you're a guy like Tim Burton, who I don't think starting out had delusions of becoming one of the most powerful filmmakers in Hollywood.
No, he was an animator. He expected to be anonymous, basically.
Right, with weird, and then when he was
Such
doing live action.
A distinct visual
right,
style.
it was like Disney was like, we don't know what to do with this guy. Like, give him somebody to make Frankenweenie or whatever.
Right.
And then his movies kept on like growing and growing, and then he made this like blockbuster that redefined like the studio system.
Sure.
Like Batman changes everything, and then like the blank checks he get from Batman.
That was the unfinished sequel to Batman. Batman changes everything.
Batman changes everything. Right. Yeah.
That was going to be his third after
it's
Batman
municipal.
Returns.
It's
Batman,
about he's
like,
digging into
changes
pension
everything.
systems,
Yes.
plumbing. Like he's changing the whole city of Gotham.
Right,
at
it
that
was
point.
Batman just deals with legislature. He rolls up his bat sleeves.
It's time for someone,
It's
you
right,
know.
those bat sleeves are
Tax
spiky
reform,
too. Those
very
are hard.
So he rolls them up and they puncture.
Ow,
yeah.
ow. Okay.
Let's
go.
But I think then it's scary to like lose that.
I'm the comptroller Gotham deserves.
Yes, he was a maverick. He came in, he was an outsider that Gotham needed.
Yeah.
eating
But
them in.
I think that kind of like fucks things up. Because up until this point, he's like following his own bliss. And even when he's making a Batman movie, he's like, I'm doing the Batman that no one else would think to make.
Yeah.
And then this.
Except for Frank Miller, maybe.
Right.
A little bit.
Maybe. But then even like the whole
Even
visual
so, yeah.
sensibility and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think it starts to become like, fuck, what do people want out of a Tim Burton movie? You know?
Right.
And I think perhaps if like Mars Attacks had done really well, he would have felt
kept
more
being
comfortable
weird.
being like, every other movie I'll do a smaller character.
That was
Yeah,
when
yeah.
we talked about which movie to see. I was like, Ed Wood with a bullet.
Yeah.
I was just like, that's the one I want to talk about, even though there are people who are much more qualified to talk about this movie. And you should have gotten Dana Gould in here immediately, but that's another story.
Oh, please.
And Dana's
He
not
said
welcome
no.
here.
Yeah, he's not welcome here. Of course not. And he'll never be here.
He'll never be here.
But because that was the one where I felt like, oh, that's the last, and I'd forgotten about Mars Attacks came after because I saw that movie and I immediately forgot it because I did not care for it.
Have you
never
watched
seen it since.
Okay, well, I think you'd love it today.
Right. Well, maybe so.
Yeah.
But this was, I was like, oh, that was the last time he was like, I feel that Tim Burton was really pushing a Burton envelope and making a movie and trying.
I would argue Mars Attacks is the last one
and
of
then,
those.
yeah,
And then I think the rest of them start to
Sleepy
become
Hollow a little bit.
Even
By
the
the
ones
way,
I like.
Tim Burton, I know you're listening. I would love to work with you on any project. That's not
look,
what I'm saying. I'm not.
We'd both love to work with
But
him.
there was a time
yeah.
when you were a filmmaker, and then there's a time when you became a fairly consistent interior decorator of movies. I feel like
my friend Louis always had this theory that was like, I think he just kind of got happy.
Yeah.
Like, I think he
Right.
stopped feeling tortured and he found some complacency within himself and he seems fairly well adjusted now. And I think he starts making these decisions of like, what should I be making now?
And it's also
As opposed to like, what is the song of my heart?
It happens to some directors, the budget creep thing, where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't imagine making a small movie again. I'm so used to the whole industry that around it. It's like I'd have to make like a little thing,
Also,
like
it
it's a
must
pain.
be so hard to say no if they're like,
Right.
hey,
If they're like, come make Dumbo. Here is so much money.
Right.
We will provide every resource you need.
you
We will
can do
provide
anything
any
you want.
actor
You can hire any
want.
actor. Right, exactly.
All it really needs is there does have to be a elephant in it with big
Yeah,
ears. But
right.
apart from that, like do what you
Do
want.
whatever
It's
you want.
Dumbo.
Right.
It's a 50-minute movie. Like, you
Yeah.
know, mess with it however you like.
That must be so hard to turn down. And then I think the times that he's tried to, I mean, this is the
there
frustrating
is a left
thing.
turn. I forgot in a later part of his career.
In the 2000s, I think he tries to make 3 turns,
Yeah.
and they all underperform in relation to the movies before and after them.
He takes 3 left turns and winds up at the same spot.
Right. So it's like if you're Tim Burton and it's like here on one end is like Sweeney Todd,
Right.
then Alice in Wonderland, and then Big Eyes.
Right.
And maybe I'm
Eyes.
forgetting one in between, but it's like, well, all the encouragement seems to be coming from the fact that Alice in Wonderland made $1 billion worldwide.
Right.
Why would I go back to making these other 2 movies that people were confused by?
Right.
You know?
But he makes Big Eyes and his heart doesn't seem in my opinion. We'll talk about Big Eyes.
I've not seen Big Eyes, but it was written by these guys, the guys who wrote.
Right.
Ed
It was
Wood.
the closest I think he's come to doing another Ed Wood. It's nowhere near as good as Ed Wood. It's a film I really like.
It lacks the visual panache of Ed Wood, which is sort of disappointing.
God, this movie looks gorgeous.
This
Incredible.
movie just looks insane. Like
and
it's
and
very,
unlike
very
any
fun to
other
watch.
Tim Burton.
No.
Certainly.
And I also watch it and I go like, how did he pull this off? Like his aesthetic idea for this movie is make it look like a shitty movie, but beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's like a beautifully executed version of a really marginal B picture.
Yeah.
And
when Bela Lugosi, spoiler, commits himself for treatment for drug addiction.
Major spoiler, yeah.
And Ed Wood is talking to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this scene, there's a scene in a hospital hallway that truly looks like they're standing in front of a scrim. Like it is the cheapest looking.
And the sets are very like, I mean, that's
very Spartan.
That's the thing where
yeah.
I just go like, how the fuck did he pull this off? Because you have the scenes where he's shooting his movies.
Right.
Yeah.
And the joke is that the sets of the Ed Wood films are terrible.
But you're also in like an airplane hangar, right? You're
Right.
You know, but there's
But then like the airplane hangar that the set is built in is also a set.
Yes.
And he makes that set look artificial.
Well, there are some shots like there's the shots like the wrestling ring,
right?
Where it's a full crowd that he has like summoned to do. This isn't like CGI or whatever. This is the early 90s.
Yeah.
And the what do you call it? The premieres.
Yeah.
Like especially that one where they open and everyone is throwing popcorn at each other and you know, it looks like expensive. It looks beautiful.
Well, he had that Batman changes everything money.
Right.
He
yes.
did. Batman did change everything.
They paid him so much to not make that movie.
$18 million was the budget of this film.
Yeah. So it was set up at Warner Brothers, which was his main
fair
home
chunk of
studio
change.
at that point. Other than Edward Scissorhands, everything he had done had been at Warner's at that point.
And it's usually who he works with them a lot to this day, right? Or has he?
Now
flipped
he
with
goes
them?
between Warner's and Disney.
Disney, yeah.
I feel like those are the two he flips between. But at that time, he was almost exclusively a Warner's boy. And he sets it up there, and he's very adamant about the fact that he wants it to be black and white. And
Excuse me,
everyone's
he's a Warner bro.
He's a Warner bra.
Warner bra.
Right. He's rolling with the bros.
Right.
And
When you
everyone's
think
like,
bro, you think Tim Burton.
Oh,
That guy's
yeah.
such a bro.
he's a Warner bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Everyone is like, this black and white idea is death. Making a movie about a bad movie is a bad idea.
Sure.
And Johnny Depp is like Edward Scissorhands is his only big box office success at that point as a leading man.
Well, I mean, I would look at his filmography, but I'm afraid Hodgman's going to roast me.
I'm not roasting. Come on,
No,
David.
I'm kidding.
Oh, my goodness.
Gilbert, well, after Edward Scissorhands, he'd only made 2 movies.
So
Gilbert Grape, which was
did
not a
all
big
right,
hit.
I guess.
It
Yeah,
made $10 million.
Oh, really? Jeez. Yeah.
And Benny and June,
Okay.
which didn't light the world on fire,
Yeah.
but made a little money too.
I mean, he's a guy at that point in time.
It solidified his silent comedy,
right.
Right.
his silent comedy impersonation chops.
But he's still only a few years removed from like 21 Jump Street. Like he
Right.
is still, I suppose.
This is when
like
he's
a
starting to
young
become like the thinking
idol.
man's heartthrob.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's like, oh, but he's weird. He likes like Buster Keaton and shit.
He does.
Like he's very handsome, but he doesn't want to do that cookie cutter shit, you know?
Yeah, I feel like that rep, speaking as someone who was a full-blown adult when this movie came out, that rep was locked in.
Everyone was buying it. Like we were discerning. We get Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
The public doesn't.
Yeah.
You know? And they were like, Johnny Depp's a leading man, but he's not big enough to like validate your vision of making a $20 million black and white film about a bad director.
Right.
And a bad director that really not everyone had heard of in the way that they had. I mean,
No, it's
in large part because of this movie, a lot of people have heard
Well, also,
of it, but it was
Mystery
still
Science Theater 3000. Where is that?
that is not there yet. That doesn't
Right?
exist yet.
Because that's the thing is like I feel like once that's kicked up, then you have this
They
sort
start
of
to show
all
his
of
movies.
that.
Yeah.
But
It became. I discovered a distressing thing, which was that according to the Wikipedia. See, I use the internet too, David. I'm not incredible.
Interesting. I'm not the only one.
No, I'm not a super mind. I'm just a guy with the internet like everybody
I think
else.
he was a bit of a superman.
It's all the internet. But according to Wikipedia, Plan 9 from Outer Space started getting a cult following when it was named as the worst movie of all time
Yes.
in this book called The Golden Turkeys or some such by the Medved brothers, including
crazy.
Michael Medved obviously was a film reviewer before he became what he is now, which is a right-wing radio talk show host and kind of a monster.
But I think that book was kind of the beginning of like...
That was in 1980, yes.
Yeah.
The Golden
of
Turkey
bad
Awards.
art culture. Like it was the beginning of like the 90s, especially with Mystery Science Theater and books like that were starting to get written of like, actually sometimes these shitty movies are like fun.
Right.
And people obsessing over
and there
bad
was like
works.
that was the era, the 80s were the era, like the Psychotronic Film Guide and Research Magazine that would cover all these weird, this is the era of my friend Nick McCarthy bringing us all over to his house to stay up all night to watch bad movies on VHS.
Right.
Sure.
And then in the 90s, this movie comes out and then the Mystery Science Theater MST3K comes out and starts codifying this subculture and bringing it out into a larger audience.
The idea of cult things starts to become mainstream.
But in 1994, that was
still
not
cult. It's like
still very
literally,
cult.
it's like an inside whisper. Like
certainly no
network
studio
of-
is going to be fired up about the idea that you're going to do a Plan 9 from Outer Space movie.
No, most of them wouldn't even know what it was.
Right. No
you
one's,
know?
yeah.
Right. So Warner Brothers puts the film in turnaround.
Griffin, you're wrong. It's not Warner Brothers.
Was it Sony?
It's Columbia.
Fuck, it was Columbia.
Because
I think Warner Brothers turned it down. Maybe.
but it's because Alexander and Karaszewski, who had written Problem Child,
Right.
And Problem Child too, I believe.
I think you're right. Yeah,
And I think
credit
they
where
thought that
credit
was
is
like
due.
an albatross around their neck. Where
right.
they
They're
were
like,
like,
we got to get out of this.
Why would they feel that way? Two modern classics.
Yes, right.
Well, because the script was so good that it put them in a washing machine, like the script itself.
I have not seen either of the Problem Children.
Neither have I. I'm
The
going off
video box
poster.
is John Ritter in a washing
Hey,
machine.
how come the sequel to Problem Child wasn't Problem Children? Where they weren't thinking
It also
that way
wasn't
yet.
Problem Child, 2.
Which I'm sure literally the sequel, I think the sequel literally is about a second
I
problem.
think it
child.
is.
Like it's now there's a girl too. You know,
Right.
there used to be just
Yeah, no, it should be called Problem Children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
problem kids.
But we're applying our branding savvy here in the year 2018 backwards in
sure.
time.
Hindsight's 2020.
Because we look
Yeah.
back and we say, of course, a meta film about Ed Wood that's hilarious.
Right.
But the 90s barely existed at the time when meta didn't exist in that.
Also,
in that way.
if you were caught up in the hurricane of like Problem Child fever, you could barely think clearly.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
the
whirlwind.
tagline.
This PC culture is getting out of hand.
It's
That's what I
classic.
said.
It's one of those classic 2 tagline posters.
Uh-huh.
So top of the poster.
Yeah.
This summer, Junior has a brand new friend. Okay. Problem Child 2. Right now, there's 2 of them. Right. But below, he's bad. She's worse.
2 taglines does not bode well.
Especially when both of them are half a tagline, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they couldn't really settle. They were like, well,
So
let's
that
just
was
split
the premise
difference.
was they had a
Yeah,
girl.
that's it. They probably put them both on there.
They added a girl and they put Ritter in the washing machine.
And they probably put
That's
both
good.
taglines in so that some mid-level, executive wouldn't get mad.
Right,
Yes.
right. And it was like, he's bad, she's worse was Bob's idea. And he's really going to not like it if we don't put that in there somewhere.
Yeah, right.
I think that was the idea, though, was like they had written this thing that then became really successful, but was sort of seen as like a piece of shit and a joke.
Right. So
And
they
were like-
have this script they believe in.
Right,
The
because
Ed
I'm
Wood
sure
script
they're
is
getting
their
like
script.
1,000 offers
Right.
to make shitty family comedies, and they're
Right.
like, this isn't really what we want to get stuck doing.
So they set this script up with Burton to produce, with Michael Lehman to direct.
Michael Lehman to direct.
Which is weird. And Michael Lehman had to go make Airheads. That's why he couldn't do it. He had
Well,
to make
I'm sure it
Airheads.
made sense to him at the time.
I
you
mean,
also-
Airheads is all right.
Have you ever worked with Lehman?
I have not. Have you? He does a lot of TV.
Terrific
right?
guy.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, I worked with him on Bored to Death a couple of times.
I think of him as Truth About Cats and Dogs. I have seen that movie
Yeah.
at least twice.
He's really smart,
else has he
really
made?
funny. He will talk to you about Hudson Hawk all day long.
Right, he made Hudson Hawk.
Yeah, which is an incredibly. I mean that is not a great. That's not a successful film.
Sure.
No.
But it's
No.
Financially,
But
and
it's
artistically, I think
fascinating.
even Michael Lehman, if you're listening, I think he would acknowledge that it did not work the way it was supposed to. But it had a sense of humor that was a little bit mind breaking.
Right. But
It was meta at a time when meta wasn't in part of the vocabulary.
Right, but now I understand why he was like, maybe I should just go make Airheads. Like maybe after Hudson Hawk flop, he's like, maybe I shouldn't make the weird homage to the bad director that's a good movie. Like maybe
Right.
I should just make the idiots, hold up a radio store.
Well, and I think
radio
that was
show.
probably an idea of like you make a down the middle comedy.
Right.
Like it's a
Nah.
bad film, it's a bad director, and you make a comedy about a guy who's inept. And Tim Burton latches
you
onto
can't-
this idea of making the movie like the most consider it positive biopic ever made.
I mean that, and if that's, I mean, again, you feel that he is bringing that. To
That's
this
the thing
movie.
with this movie is tone management is like the name of the game. He's walking such a fine line where you think about most biopics, especially like of artists, right? And it's like either like here's an inspiring story of someone who like broke through a glass
Which
ceiling
usually
or
sucks.
Like, changed history, and they like deify them too much, right? They
Right.
stop being human. Or it's the like here's an artist you love and here are their demons.
Sure.
Here's the shit you
It
didn't
also
know.
sucks.
Right.
Right, and this is a story about a man who thinks he's in a biopic about how he changed Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And he gives him the movie the guy thinks he's in.
yes.
And
yes.
and
right.
the exploration of his character or the reveal of his character
Mhm.
as a fundamentally decent,
Yes.
eccentric, self-deluded, but not completely self-deluded. There are times when he's like, I don't think I got it.
Right.
And Sarah
yes.
Jessica Parker has to talk him into it.
But that's
Like
yes.
that's so beautiful. And I have to say that there are a couple of times in this movie where you see a glimpse of what it might have been otherwise.
Mhm, yes.
Like there are moments, particularly in the montage when he's shooting Plan 9 from outer space.
and everything's going wrong.
Right.
And he loves it all.
And the movie is just going, and the movie is basically saying, look at these terrible sets, right? This is terrible, right?
Right. The
He thinks
guy's
it's
scratching
good.
his head with the gun.
Right.
Yeah.
And those are just a few moments where you have to show them, obviously. It's
And
part
the
of
movie's kind of earned it at that point
Yeah.
where you can have a couple laughs and
But it
not
could have
feel
understand
easily
his
been
process.
all of that
top to
this
bottom
whole time.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, Burton talks a lot about how he was sort of just this movie omnivore growing up. Like he is a byproduct of the first generation to have like television and movies playing constantly, and especially these like shitty B movies that were just sold in the packages. And he just ate everything up and I think was just intoxicated by movies.
Right,
Like he loves the idea of the range of what a movie can represent.
I'm in pictures.
Right. And he's like applying that to this guy who like Burton's often said like, I'm surprised that any of my movies work. I think I don't
So
know
am
how,
I.
Right. He's like, I don't know how to
On
judge
paper,
a good script.
right,
like on
right,
paper,
right.
these things feel like they're too like specific to connect with people at large. And I think he feels like I'm a lucky version of Ed Wood. Like I'm an Ed Wood
Yes.
that somehow is connecting with people.
Yes.
But my motivations are no different than what he's doing. I have my little family of weirdos. I like working with the same people.
Yeah,
I'm following my own bliss.
And it's a vision that a lot of people would say, no, I don't think this is a good idea.
my movies are very much fetish objects. They're
Right.
my own psychology spilled out on
Right.
screen.
And then
you
you just need Vincent D'Onofrio with Maurice LaMarche's voice to tell you, follow your vision. And he
Right.
did it.
Right, and he's like there, but for like the grace of God go I. Like,
I remember.
Right.
I remember sitting in my kitchen in Brookline, Massachusetts, with my print edition of the Boston Globe, and I read the casting for the Batman movie that was going to come out,
Sure.
and it was Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
And I remember setting the paper down and saying to the air, "It can't be done.
Right.
Even
It's just-
this
it
is
won't
too
work."
weird."
And
Right,
you're a fan of Pee-wee's Big
Of
Adventure at that
course.
point. You go, this is a train wreck.
I was
Yeah.
a huge fan of Beetlejuice
Right.
and Michael Keaton, and I was like, he's not Batman. I mean,
Right.
everyone felt the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
Until about halfway through the movie, I would say, and then I became convinced. But
Right, and then he's like, cool. It takes place in like a weird retrofuturistic version of the 1930s. It looks like a German expressionist horror movie.
Right. I'm doing an homage to both that and the 60s Adam West Batman, but it's neither.
Right.
It's also serious.
They're making me use
But it's
8
also very
Prince
funny.
songs,
Right.
which like should
I have a
totally bump
soundtrack
up
by
against
Prince.
all his shit.
but no one could have been more pre-sold for any version of Tim Burton's Batman.
Then
Right.
you were all,
And
even
even
you're
I
like,
had
"Oh, come
skepticism."
on." Right.
and took some winning over. And so it is incredible that these movies connected.
And then
But
when you
that-
heard about
right.
a guy with scissor hands, you were like, "Guy should have regular hands." Scissor, he can't pick a damn thing up.
Yeah, that seems to me to be too much of a problem.
Right. Too many.
That's
You want fingers,
yeah.
not scissors.
I mean, look, even if the guy is lacking hands and needs prosthetics, scissors is the worst choice.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? You'd be better off with chopstick hands.
Oh, much better. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
or Luke Skywalker hands. I mean, if he can get a
rabbit hand?
a robot hand,
He's only got one rabbit hand. I do feel like, his thing he said at the time when people were like, how did you know that Michael Keaton could play Batman? Especially looking at the work he had done up until that point. And
Right.
how, from collaborating with him on Beetlejuice, you see he was right for that part. And he said, I saw it was all in his eyes. And I knew that character was so much about, because of the costume, the eyes, and I saw he had that in him.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, you're like, God, look how smart he looks that he
Right.
called that. But on its face, that doesn't sound any different than Ed Wood, like, seeing the chiropractor and being like, you have the same eyes as Bela Lugosi.
That is also why it's fascinating that Tim Burton tried to make a Superman movie with Nicolas Cage.
Right.
Which also on the face of it seems ludicrous. And then, of course, we never saw it. So in our heads, it will always just be ludicrous.
Hulk Hogan was going to play Brainiac, and Chris Rock was
play?
Hulk Hogan was going to play Brainiac.
That movie was
Chris Rock was going to play Jimmy Olsen. Like, it was going to be insane, and it was just like, I guess if they let me make this, I'll like follow my like bliss on this.
Right. And to be fair, if it happened, it would have been ludicrous. That didn't necessarily mean it wouldn't.
No, that's
work.
the thing. That's the thing. But
so many of his movies are kind of ludicrous.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
yet they work. Like Ed Wood.
Yeah.
Lovely Ed Wood. Anyway, no, it was a Columbia movie.
Okay.
He wants to shoot it in black and white.
Because they had it set up through Lehman and
yeah, it was the Columbia had a first look.
Problem Child was Columbia.
And that's sure possibly.
So Burton's putting his name to it to give
I'll
it some
direct
cash.
to because Michael Lehman's going off to do Airhead. So, but it's got to be black and white. This only makes sense as black and white. It is hard to imagine this film in color.
Wouldn't work.
And they're like, no, like absolutely not. Then there's a bidding war.
Because he's still so hot at this
Exactly.
point. Right,
Everyone wants it.
Yeah.
But Disney takes it. And they say, here's $18 million. We figure you'll do fine. We won't bother you again.
Right. Disney still has Touchstone at this point.
Right. They weren't like,
Touchstone's
I'll change you. They were
right.
just like, you're Tim Burton. I'm sure you'll be fine. Here's your money. Like, go make your movie.
I think this is 95, right?
94.
This is 94. So is this the same? No. Night Before Christmas comes out the year before.
Yeah.
But they're deep in that. Disney's clearly trying to like get back in the Burton
the movie
business.
is made
You're talking
in
about
93.
the Henry Selick film, A Nightmare Before Christmas?
That's right.
Yes, the film Tim Burton's A Nightmare Before Christmas, directed by Henry Selick.
Right.
I think they want him back in their fold. I mean, they eventually get him back, you know? But I think for them, it's also an investment of like, let's do Tim Burton a favor so maybe he'll want to like come here and do some more big family movies for Disney.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they must have viewed it as something of a write-off. And maybe it works and maybe it doesn't, but maybe you get his next movie.
Who made Mars Attacks?
Warner Brothers. He goes back to Warner Brothers. And then after that, he starts to become really a free agent. Then he's like flipping all around the place.
Right.
Sleepy Hollow is who?
Is
That's
Paramount.
Okay.
Planet of the Apes is Fox.
Right.
Like then it becomes about who owns the property because
Right,
it becomes him remaking properties.
Right.
Warner's has Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Alice is Disney, right?
Alice is Disney.
He's a franchise flipper.
Exactly.
Really
He goes
is.
in and redoes the house and flips it.
Right,
And
like-
it is partly the Batman thing. It's like, well, we gave you a franchise way back
Right,
when, and you
right.
did something magic with it. So yeah, what do you want to take a swing at X, like Dark Shadows?
Yeah.
You just reminded me that Tim Burton directed a movie that starred Mark Wahlberg.
Correct.
Yes,
That's weird.
It's one of the weirdest things.
it
I
is a
com-
weird movie.
I saw that in the theater.
Sure.
Also at the
And
Child.
I was truly excited for that movie.
Were you?
Because I was how old?
'Cause
was
the
I?
makeup.
I've maybe
The
never been
makeup
more
looked
excited
cool.
for a film.
I was like 14 years old, I guess.
Growing up in New York City, hardscrabble kid on the Lower East
Yeah,
Side,
no other frame of reference. Only
Playing-
knows the hard streets of New York
playing
City.
stickball with Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
Jack, I'm walking here. Let me tell you,
Hey, there's a car coming.
I got to see this Apes movie.
You know Sims was a member of the Yancey Street Gang, right?
Oh, he was?
It was based on
Oh,
him.
my goodness.
Yeah, I would like send the thing one of those letters where it's like, you're a crumb bum. And he'd be like shredding it like,
It's clobbering time again.
that Yancey Street gang won't leave me alone.
We gotta start calling people crumb bums again.
You know what I mean? Every fantastic, he's like, you won't believe what they did. They called me a crumb bum again.
I never really figured out who those Yancey Streeters were.
Those kids told me to go pack sand.
Pack sand. I've always heard pound sand.
I like pack sand.
I love pack sand. Like, well, I'm going to get out my overhead
sand
bag.
packing.
Right. Go down to the beach and pack some sand.
People need bags of this stuff. I guess I'm the one to do it.
Benji, the wizard is on the loose. We have to fight him. I don't know. Some kid walked up to me, told me to go suck a lemon. I don't know if I got the mood to fight crime.
God, he is a wildly depressive guy. I mean, it makes
The Thing?
sense. Yeah,
The Thing? He's easily
He is
triggered.
made of rock.
He's an easily triggered libtard. He is.
Get out of here.
Send a ambulance. He's an NPC.
We can't talk about the Fantastic Four because I'll go down a Fantastic Four.
I would love to talk about the Fantastic Four with you.
Our worst episode
But I
we've
think
ever
I'll go
done.
into
a
Right.
negative zone.
The worst episode we've ever done on this podcast
Yeah.
was we tried to cover all 4 Fantastic Four movies in one episode.
Very early in the podcast.
Well, that was a high concept. You
Yeah.
were
Right.
swinging for the fences, much like Tim Burton's early career.
Yes, yes.
You had not become complacent and starting to, flip your
No,
franchise.
no, we were risky. We were
Right.
taking risks. No, I mean that's when it starts to become like you feel like Tim Burton probably wasn't really excited by Mark Wahlberg. And Mark Wahlberg in interviews when they asked him about Planet of the Apes was like, I thought like Tim Burton's crazy. I want to be in that movie. I don't really care about Planet of the Apes. I didn't want to be in that fucking thing. But I was like, Tim Burton, he's cool, right? Like neither of them seemed very excited about the movie they were working on.
Right.
They were just like,
extremely expensive, like where people have to put on makeup that probably takes like 8 hours, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. Planet of the Apes. It's like a planet full of apes.
All those weird Tim Burton regulars is like extra apes and the
like Glenn
Lisa Marie
Shadix is
and,
right, the fat orangutan.
Yeah, right,
and
exactly.
Stuff. No, I mean that's really the turning point for me.
Sure, that makes sense.
But
Ed Wood.
Well, we'll talk about that in another episode, but not me, without me.
Well, maybe
you can come back.
Yeah.
Oh, look, maybe I'll never leave.
Yeah,
sure.
All right,
be a third host.
So Disney picks it up. They give him $18 million, and he makes American Masterpiece.
He does. He makes his best movie, I think.
That's what. Thinking back, like, I guess it did.
You're so disturbed that it didn't do well.
It just struck me as like,
you feel like within your circles, everyone was obviously like in
my
movie.
coastal elite circles. Sure. Yeah, but I just felt like I think most people critically say, "Oh, that's a good movie."
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the battle was just getting people to see it. That was the thing.
It did not occur to me that was a movie that would have put his rep in Hollywood at risk. Do you know what I mean? As being able to helm either as a write-off for Disney in order to get him to come do something else, or as something where he might have to course correct. Obviously, Mars Attacks took that part for him. And one wonders if that hadn't been there.
I don't think it made Hollywood doubt him as much as it maybe made him doubt himself. Right. Because he was such a savant in so many ways, where it was just like, this stuff's just connecting. Then when it doesn't once, he's like, what am I missing this time?
Right.
I imagine he's a guy who probably couldn't figure out why certain movies work and certain movies don't.
Sure.
You know?
But his take on this movie is absolutely the perfect take for it. You know, like, whereas maybe, he approaches Planet of the Apes, he doesn't have a very good concept of what the movie should, but like his idea that you were talking about, where it's like the movie kind of looks like an Ed Wood movie, but also is sort of sumptuous and beautiful to look at in a weird kind of a way.
It's meta, but I think like a lot of Tim Burton stuff that is meta, it also is very sincere.
And that's the big
idea to make it like through Ed Wood rather than about Ed, right? You know, it's like it's not like look at this wacko. It's sort of
it's very sincere kitsch, which is this other thing that he's really kind of owning at this point, where there's like no ironic distance, which is so big at that point in the 90s of just like,
or it's coming into fashion.
Yes,
I would say, and you know, I've seen the movie. I saw it when it came out. I probably saw it another time. And then the last time I saw it before watching it again for today was maybe 2 years ago. I decided to turn it on and watch it with my son, who at the time was 11, 12. I'm like, I'm not sure that you're going to connect. That you're going to connect with this movie, and you don't know what Plan 9 is,
right? If you
don't have any of this kitsch or whatever, and there's obviously cross dressing and other stuff that maybe deserves a discussion at some point, but let's just watch it. And he's like, I love it. That's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's such a winning movie.
Well, I realized what it was. Rewatching it today, it's like, it's the Muppet movie.
Sure. Because it's like a family.
It's a family of weirdos.
Colorful people.
Trying to get into Hollywood.
Which you're talking about my favorite kind of story.
Yeah.
It's like
the movie where at the end you sort of see everyone together and you're like, oh, right. They've all sort of been in this together.
The ragtag group that becomes family. Right. And fights against the odds.
Or so Sarah Jessica Parker said, it's the same old like drug addicts and misfits.
Right. But it is like, especially like, it's one of those movies where I get choked up when it does the sort of end postscript.
Right.
Catch-ups on the characters, because you're like, what a fucking group he built around them. Like all these like wacky people who all like they were all misfit toys who ended up on the same island.
And they had all been drawn to LA presumably for the same reason, because they all loved movies or television.
Sure. Yes.
I mean, and you know, Bunny Breckenridge was this actor who this is the thing I didn't realize. Paul Marco, the actor who played the cop, who's played in this movie by Max Casella.
Yeah. The great Max Casella.
Yeah, the great Max Casella, younger Max Casella. The
baby face.
Yeah. I know.
Like
post big, but
and
Newsies, but he's in The Sopranos, and he's like, hey, fuck you, you know, like, which just became his thing.
But Breckenridge was this financially, like very wealthy socialite gay drag performer.
Yes.
Who and he
was like
Marco,
Shakespearean trained.
He's very well trained
right.
actor.
He's like of the Breckenridges, right?
Yeah,
like the famous one.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
yeah, he's like his great grandfather was a Secretary of State or something like that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And he grew up in Paris. He was married for
John C.
unknown
Breckenridge,
reasons.
vice president.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he got into this circle because he was sharing an apartment with Paul Marco.
Yeah.
They were like roommates.
Right, and like this,
just rando people, like my
just
roommate
like trying
is
to
an actor.
live in LA. Right.
this
yeah.
movie like changes the timeline of certain people coming in, so that you don't have to introduce everyone separately.
No,
but I read that the way that Paul Marco got into show business was that Griswold like predicted he was going to have a big career in Hollywood.
Griswold, yeah, I heard that too.
Sorry,
yeah, Griswold.
And, yeah,
come on, get out of here.
Clark Griswold predicted.
Griswold.
It's if you watch Vegas Vacation, it's in that movie.
Yeah.
He just turns to the camera all of a sudden, right?
No, but Griswold did like say like, I predict you will become a major movie star. And he's like, I guess I got to be in movies,
right?
Well, like here's the thing I always thought about was like Paul Marco's daughter was my like chorus teacher in like middle school.
Okay.
Holy moly.
Okay.
And she like told me, she was like, you know, my dad, because there's the whole thing where he sets up the Paul Marco fan club that they say at the end.
Yeah, at the end, right.
That they like Disney had reached out and were like, Tim Burton doing Ed Wood movie, we'd love your participation. And he was like, I'm so angry at these people like making fun of Ed Wood, making this cottage industry this thing that was really sincere, and was like really against it because he felt like everyone was asking him to give quotes on these books of like the worst movies of all time. And he was like, we were coming from a really pure place.
Yeah, we were friends.
Right.
They were all friends.
And he was like, it was my father's like greatest regret in life that he couldn't believe that they would be making a sincere, like compassionate movie about him. When he saw it, he was so touched that they like keyed into what was infectious about this guy, why all these people were drawn to him.
Yeah.
And it is that Muppet Show thing where you're just like, why does Gonzo think that there's a place for him in the industry?
Right.
Like with that routine.
Right.
But it's like he literally can't conceive of anything else. And the same
there
thing.
was still a lot of chicken-based vaudeville though in 1979. To be fair, there was a touring opportunities and that sort of thing.
But all these people like that he gathers around them fit into that sort of like oddball space where it's like, I got no other options.
And you believe there's no moment where you don't believe that they are all happy being there together.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
because
what
Bella's getting in the lake, right? It's like,
but
like Vampira, you know, she'll take his calls because she kind of knows he's sort of a like weirdly winning guy, even though he's kind of hassling her. He's like, you know, hey Vampira, like, you know, because he's I don't know, there's something about him, right? Like that's the movie. The movie's not what I hate about biopics, which is what you were saying, is if it's about some genius, there has to be the moment where the genius has the moment of genius, and then he decides to. Van Gogh decides to paint the sunflowers or whatever.
Right.
And it's very hard to represent that in a film.
Yes.
Like to represent creativity.
Light bulb over the head. Right. Done.
Shit, you're right.
Fuck.
What the hell?
And instead of
classic.
Yeah.
Obviously this movie
you
is
don't,
not
you don't see that on your computer?
This guy's never seen Toon before.
Sorry, go ahead. You were saying.
This movie doesn't do any of the bullshit where it's like, I don't know, Ed Wood sees like a hubcap and he's like, that looks like a flying saucer. It doesn't do any of that stupid short. It's all about his personality. Like everything, that's the core of the movie. And so everything that follows from it just makes a weird sort of sense, even though it shouldn't make any sense at all.
And he's also a survivor. Like it's all like instinct because people keep on throwing these like curveballs in the way and he just adjusts. And it's like, I just need to make the thing.
Right.
I believe in myself so thoroughly that compromises be damned, this movie will be a winner once it's finished.
But also, he believes in the weirdos that he surrounds himself with. And that whole thing where they're up all night and Lugosi gets into the water with the fake octopus.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Marco's lost the octopus motor, one of the great two words put together.
They make sure to say it like 4 times because it's such a good phrase.
And they've been shooting all night, and then they get back to the soundstage and they have to keep shooting.
Yeah.
And he gives each of them this little pep talk that is totally sincere. And like, you if you were around him, you would do that too. I would be in that movie.
And these are
you know
people
what I mean?
How could you say no to him?
Yes.
Yeah.
These are all people who are all in show business for the right reasons because it's clear to all of them that they're never going to make it like real big.
Right.
You know, everyone below Ed who believes that he is going to have the breakthrough is like, I've sort of found my like middling spot.
Yeah, exactly. Criswell is doing weird predictions.
But they love doing the work. They don't know how to do anything else. And they love the infectious spirit of other people who are as trapped as they are.
What's the line where and I don't know how historical this is, but he gets the money from this Baptist church to make
I believe
Plan
that's pretty
9.
accurate. Yeah.
And and he says to Paul Marco, keep your Sunday open. The Baptist,
Yes.
we're getting
Right.
baptized.
We're getting baptized.
And I can't remember whether it was Criswell or someone else says to him, like, how do you get all of your
It's funny,
friends?
Bunny Breckenridge, right?
Bunny
It's like,
says,
it's like how
I don't know
where
how
they're
you
all
do
like
it, Eddie.
standing in the
Yeah.
pool, right?
Right.
And
It's
it is
right
so
after Bill
perfect.
Murray's almost drowned, and he just
Right.
goes like, I don't know how you do it. And
Well,
get all
also
your friends
Murray-
to get baptized.
Murray
Right.
does nail that right, where it's like, do you renounce
Oh.
Satan and all that? Sure.
He's-
That had to have been a Murray, like,
It's
ad-lib,
Oh, yeah.
so.
He's so
So
good
him.
in this. I mean, this was like
where was Bill Murray at this time?
Ben and I were talking about that because
He's
he's
kind
in
of
the
in a
middle.
weird spot.
He's in the
Yeah.
like he's about to enter his kind of family zone. I feel like
larger
right?
than
Like,
life. His like
Yeah,
Elephant
Groundhog
movie.
Day is just the year before,
Wow,
so I
okay.
guess
All right.
I mean that was obviously that's a wonderful movie. But then his next movies are Kingpin, Larger Than Life, Space Jam, The Man Who Knew Too Little, Wild Things. Like,
yeah, what's weird
you
is
know.
that like this period, he's like really good when he's taking supporting roles, and his vehicles aren't as good.
Right.
yeah.
You know,
Man, his monologue after they've rapped on Bride of the Monster.
Mexico was a nightmare.
Oh, my, that is so beautifully played.
Well, and that's like an example. You look at this movie, like from 1994.
Yeah.
And
We've established that, right? Check the computer, David.
David, can you
1994?
look up on the computer?
Is that what year this movie was
Edward
released?
was 1994. Yes,
Right.
the year of our Lord.
Maybe you want to check the computer, though, because it's there. You might as well use it, right?
Septi. Oh, it was at the New York Film Festival.
Septi. Really?
23, 1994.
I just think, I'm sure this is a thing that all of you gentlemen have found as well. But you watch almost any studio comedy from the years 1981 to 2004, and the level of just like casual homophobia
Right.
and transphobia is
Right.
just like off the charts. Like very few make it through without one thing where you're just like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Sure.
Yeah, like,
Right. And like, here's like a movie that's actually dealing with like at this time, like pretty marginalized sexual orientations and fetishes and things like that.
in the time of the movie, and weirdly in 1994 still.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And most comedies you think would really make a joke out of like, and the weirdest thing of all is he wears their clothing.
Right.
Right.
You know, like that would be the coup de grace, like set piece thing. And the movie, like, it walks, once again, it's this fine line, but it's like, it doesn't take it so seriously where it then feels like condescending to be like, you don't understand his struggle.
Right.
But it has a lightness of touch. It allows them to be fully rounded people and human, but there's like no shaming to any of their styles.
No.
I mean, it's
And
why
it
I love that
understands-
Patricia
it's
Arquette
when
so
he-
much.
Right.
How comforting it was for him. Like, you
Yeah.
know, and you understand anytime he's dressing like up, especially in public, like that he's relaxed, he's trying to de-stress. Like,
Yeah.
it never feels like just a visual punchline. Like, oh, look, there he is again, right? Like,
No, and
Right.
the moment where it's the same rap party
Yeah.
in the
oh yeah, where he does
in
the
the
dance.
meat locker
Right.
Yes.
that's owned by the cowboy who gave the money to make the movie.
Rance Howard. Yeah.
Right.
Ron Howard's father.
Oh, is that who that is?
Mhm.
Oh,
He was really
wow.
good in
He
this,
was
yeah.
really great.
Really great. Yeah.
So that
a-
dance. So he comes
He's a
in.
good boy. He's a little slow. He's a good boy.
I think you could make one hell of a leading man.
I want
Sorry,
there
go
to
ahead.
be
He
a
does the-
big explosion at the end.
But he's, you know, that's sort of like, I mean, Johnny Depp's thing he always said was like his two inspirations for this performance were Howdy Doody and Ronald Reagan. It was just that sort of like bobble-headed like
Right.
enthusiasm. Like, we'll make that work.
Yeah.
He's all teeth. He's all smiles. Yeah.
But except when he doesn't have teeth, because he
Right.
takes his teeth out.
Yes.
He does.
To have some
Right.
Dracula in him. And when he does the dance and he's in his Angora
Mhm.
and he's wearing a veil, and he takes the veil off at the end of the dance and he doesn't have his teeth
Yeah.
in, it is a arresting image.
Oh,
It's
it
one of the
is.
most, amazing images I've seen in movies.
And like, you know, then Sarah Jessica Parker freaks out and
Right.
says like, don't
Right.
you see you're
Had
all
enough.
But
the
it is
kids,
not
whatever.
that. It is not that moment. It's like, look at this freak wearing women's
No.
clothes.
And in fact,
it's like this guy has layers upon layers in him that we are just seeing a little bit of.
But those are also the only moments in the movie where I think the film passes judgment on characters, is when there is a character who passes judgment on
right,
the oddballs,
right,
you know, because it's like they're just living their life.
yes,
You know, I mean, there's something so sweet about it that like everyone just on Facebook, like there's a moment, you barely see Tor Johnson and Bunny Breckenridge like corresponding. And then Tor comes up to him at the party and says, like,
what does he say? Like,
yeah, Mr. Bunny, what happened to your operation? And it's just like,
is he the one who prompts that monologue?
Yeah, he's the one who's standing next to him. He's like, Mexico was a nightmare. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but you just go like, everyone when they get into this like weird family goes like, what's your deal? Cool, got it. Cool, got it. Like they're all so disparate, but they're all just like fine with each other,
And they don't judge each other
at all.
And just in terms of writing and filmmaking,
Yeah.
that exchange is eminently cuttable.
Yes.
Like if you got to get a couple minutes out of this
has
movie,
no bearing on the.
it doesn't move anything forward.
else. No.
If anything, it provides a glimpse into this character who is really not a main, obviously not a main
peripheral
character.
right?
No, who's, you go like, hey, studio, here's going to help sell your movie. We got Bill Murray, he'll have funny one-liners.
Well,
and then
I'm not so cynical that I thought of it in those terms.
No, but I'm saying this is
right,
the
of
scene that
course.
makes him a tragic figure.
Yeah, right,
And they're
no.
like, don't put that in there. We want him to just be the funny one-liner guy.
Right, but
it's Bill Murray playing camp, and they're like, no, we're going to make him like a man with like pathos and struggles. And like,
But it's also the source of one of the funniest lines in the movie,
Yes.
which is when he said, and like, I would have died
if
if it were not for these men. And he gestures to the mariachi band.
And that's they're his plus one. He brings them with him all the time now because they're the only thing still keeping him
And suddenly there's
upright.
this whole other backstory movie that I would love to see at some
He lost
point.
his luggage, he lost his boyfriend, but
Right.
he claimed with him a mariachi band who now will not leave his
So,
side.
and I don't know whether that was scripted or whether that was a.
But it feels right. Like that's
it
the
feels
thing. Like,
that's what it does for this movie. It makes the world feel real, deep, meaningful. You see that connection, which I had forgotten about, between Tor and Bunny.
Right.
That makes that
Which I think is the
reveals
first time
like
they
this is what's
touch the
happening in the
whole
background.
movie.
They're all hanging out together. They're all friends. They have camaraderie, set camaraderie,
Right.
like you and I shared on the Tick season 2. Camaraderie.
Sure.
We're both engaged in a. I'm sorry if you didn't feel it. I definitely felt a certain
I mean,
sense of
the
esprit de corps.
The sound stage where we filmed was often negative 15 degrees. So
Sure.
you and I would usually huddle together for warmth.
Yeah, right. That's-
Right. You had to be together simply because the human body like, generates
But
more
I mean,
warmth.
so much of it, set camaraderie is bonding through trauma.
Right. That's so we got very close.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out the very.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of shit together.
Right.
That David didn't see because I just met you at a wedding.
It's true. But we saw a lot of shit at that wedding.
That's true.
Some good meals.
But like working on a show,
I don't know why I'm trying to play this up. Never
That's
mind.
funny.
Ben, edit this out.
working on a
You
show
didn't
like
double
The
it.
Tick.
The Tick season 2.
For how difficult it is. It's a hard show to make.
Yeah.
It does have that feeling sometimes, like the Ed Wood thing, where you look around and you're like, "What the fuck are we doing?"
Yeah.
not in a dismissive way, but you're
It's
like,
what? How is this happening?
there are like PAs getting on their walkie-talkies, like hurriedly yelling that someone needs to come and touch up a nipple.
Right.
You know, because they're like prosthetic nipples, and we have like puppets and like robots and suits malfunctioning.
Spoilers.
and,
My character has 20 nipples.
Is that true?
No.
It's The Tick. It could be true.
but there are things
My
like
character's named Nipslip.
there
It's
are
not bad.
things
It's
like
not
that.
bad.
No,
Great
it's not at
character
all.
letter.
Yes.
There are things like that on set where it's like PAs very seriously saying like, "Is the nipple flying in? What's the ETA on the nipple?"
It's taking the most ridiculous stuff seriously,
Right.
Which is what this movie is about,
And all of us,
and
are
what this
just
movie
like,
is.
I hope this works, right?
Yeah, right,
like, I
yeah.
think this is funny. Like,
Right.
we're all just like in it together in like, I mean, like sub-zero weather.
That's right.
That's it. Peter's costume.
And
gets
then you and
overheated
Peter
so
hired
much.
that mariachi band to
We hired a
entertain us.
mariachi band to carry us
on
around.
that
Peter's
night shoot.
costume is very warm, right? That's
It's very
why it
warm,
was
so
cold.
they had
Yeah.
to drip. Like he would still be sweating in the costume, and the rest of us were all like hyperventilating.
It sounds like a great way to do things. It's just,
Right?
just
Like,
a
it's
trick.
like-
no one's happy. One is hot. Everyone else is cold.
I was happy.
But it's
Yeah.
the thing. Like you just
You're happy because you're in the company of Mr. Newman.
I was in good company,
Mhm.
and I did not have to wear one of those costumes.
Right.
No, you
Right.
you got to wear normal person clothing.
Right. And I
You
don't
had
want
the least intense costume of anyone on the show.
Yeah, and not only was it non styrofoam or whatever
Mhm.
you have going on there.
A lot of different things.
Not not only was it non-confining, it
You're
was
wearing
very,
zero circuitry.
It was very forgiving.
Soft clothes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It was soft clothes,
Soft
basically
clothes.
soft
Soft
clothes.
clothes,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So Ed Wood, yeah, he's a director. He lives in Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is pretty much about the production
I'm
of
trying to remember the
three.
plot.
What are
of
your
three
favorite
movies.
things about the movie, David?
What? You're putting me on the spot.
Well, that's fine. You
Look
got-
it up.
Look it up on your computer.
My favorite things about that. Well, one thing I wanted to talk about that occurred to me as you were is one thing I like about his love of Lugosi over Karloff, right?
Yeah.
So obviously Boris Karloff is a legend. I do not have Bela
He's not a
Lugosi's
legend. He was a real
personal
person.
animosity.
He was a real actor who
he
lived.
did exist.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
he
he was
it's
a
true.
legend.
No,
Mr. Wayne. No, but obviously Karloff was more about the makeup as well.
Sure.
That early scene when Ed is watching Lugosi do the hands, and Ed is sort of mimicking him on the the
he's
couch.
doing those classic
The
creepy
sort of, right,
summoning Dracula hands.
Is like that idea of the pure charisma of Lugosi as a performer, and like the physicality, like mattering so much more than anything else, which is so crucial to Ed Wood because he has nothing to work with. He has to steal or scrimp anything he's even using as a set or a prop. I love that. I just love Lugosi.
And he says it in the movie, but Bela Lugosi was the first choice for Frankenstein, and he was like, "This is not a part befitting a real actor.
Right.
This is like a stuntman part. He's got no
special
dialogue.
effects. Right, exactly. I'm just groaning what Dracula is about.
But that movie was so huge, and Karloff, who was like 50 at the time, had been like a struggling actor forever. Like overnight became a star, and then that led to him getting to play like romantic leads and verbal parts. Like it opened up all these other doors for him.
For Karloff.
Karloff's amazing. I mean, because didn't Lugosi eventually play Frankenstein?
Yeah. So the crazy thing is,
like
he
in
turns
one of
down
the late sequels,
Dracula. They don't really make the same amount of straightforward sequels as they do with the other monsters. They do like Dracula's daughter and shit like that, right?
Right.
But Frankenstein immediately becomes like franchisey in the way the Wolfman did, or Wolfman didn't really, but Invisible Man certainly did.
Right.
So the first Frankenstein movie has Fritz, who's like the Igor equivalent, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The second one doesn't have a character filling that function. And then the third one, Lugosi had like, it was such a fatal mistake that he had turned down Frankenstein. There weren't Dracula sequels being made. He had sort of lost his moment.
He needed money.
He comes back and he plays Igor. So his character is Igor, and he's the one who is like the prototype of
that's son of Frankenstein,
the hunchbacked sort of like assistant sort of guy. He's more of a like Romanian gypsy sort of type,
sure.
But it's with the hunch and the whatever. And he then becomes sort of the major antagonist of the sequels.
Right.
He becomes this like weird Machiavellian, like sort of
he's in a
King
lot of
Lear, not King Lear, the Richard III sort of figure.
Right, yeah.
And then the Ghost of Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's the next one.
Is the first one that Karloff is not in. Lon Chaney Jr. plays him.
Yep, correct.
Ends with Igor getting his brain implanted into Frankenstein's monster, so he has the power of Frankenstein.
Why are you saying Igor?
It's
is
Igor.
It Igor, isn't it?
Because his character's name is Ygor.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Because then in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, Bela is now Frankenstein.
Right. So they were like, he really wants to play Frankenstein.
Igor's brain
transforms
goes into the
face.
monster.
Correct.
So that's enough excuse to just like, sure, you can.
Right.
So now, wait a minute. Now the monster, Frankenstein's monster, has got Igor's brain in his
Which means
head.
he now looks like Igor.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, here's the crazier thing I'm about to tell you guys, okay?
Can't wait.
So his character gets blinded, which is also why he wants himself put into Frankenstein's monster's
He wants to see through those old decomposing
got the power,
eyes.
He's got clear eyes again, what have you, right? But the logic chain that they follow is, oh no, but he's blind in his brain, so when you put him in a new body, even if it has correct eyes, he won't see.
Now Igorstein is blind too?
So they shoot the whole movie where now Frankenstein's monster can talk. He sounds like Bela Lugosi.
Yes.
And he's blind. So he spends the whole movie with his arms out in front of him, feeling around, like groping out to make sure he doesn't walk into shit and talking like Bela Lugosi. And they screen it, they test screen it, and the audiences think it's fucking ridiculous.
Right.
They're like, I don't want to hear Frankenstein talking. Certainly not in that accent.
Right.
He has way too much dialogue. So they cut out almost all of his dialogue. He's in the movie for like less than 10 minutes. And that is why, without context, because they don't explain it, all kids' impressions of Frankenstein's monster is the arms out.
Right.
Because that's this weird vestige of he's feeling around to make sure he doesn't walk into a wall.
This was Ghost of Frankenstein?
This is Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, right?
Yes, that is the one in which he is the monster.
It's mostly a Wolfman movie. And that's sort
Lon
of
Chaney
like,
Jr. is the top liner there. Right.
And that's sort of the end of his like legitimate...
And what year would that have been?
That is 1943.
Would you ask the internet? 1943.
Yeah, that's like
the
end of the line for him in terms of like the serious Universal monster movies.
Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to find like a list of his because he made. I mean, it's
Right.
You know, you look up any of those old actors, and it's like their filmography is a freaking
Right.
You know, it's
But
a
he
scroll that's
becomes
2
like a
feet
guy where
long.
it's like, I'll do
I know
like
that's
one
something you have to deal with a
scene.
lot because of your reliance on the internet.
Yeah,
It's
right.
hard to parse.
Some of us
exactly.
are working
right.
off the dome.
Exactly. Right.
He
I'll do like
also
one scene in Ninochka.
he
makes an
played
appearance as
Dracula
Snake
in
Woman.
Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Right. It doesn't
Which
even
is
get
later.
like good billing.
No,
you know?
no, not at all. He also was in a movie called Bela Lugosi Meets a Brooklyn Gorilla.
Of course. Is probably my
Right.
single favorite movie title of all time.
It's a good movie title. And it's got like 2 guys who are being like
They were Dean
Dean and
Martin
Jerry,
and
right.
Jerry Lewis knockoff.
right,
act.
but they're not. Right. Yeah.
Right.
They're just sort of, you're supposed to get the idea.
Right.
Have you guys seen Dracula? Like
Yeah.
the
The Orig.
original?
Yeah, Dracula
the
fucks.
Lugosi Dracula. It does.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
don't
really
know that
good.
I've seen it.
It's a good movie. It's a really good bad boyfriend movie, which is mostly what it's about. Is like, you know, my daughter is like acting all weird, and then at night, like he just shows up at the window and he's like, "I am Dracula," and it has no music
Yes.
because it was made so early in the sound days that they couldn't have dialogue and music at the same time.
It's Todd Browning.
Todd Brown,
Correct.
Yeah.
and so he made Freaks after,
And then
right,
that killed his
right,
career.
right. Freaks is his blank check.
Yes.
Right.
And so when you watch it, you can watch it these days. There are like, I think like Philip Glass wrote a score
Yeah.
for it that like an orchestra
There
can
are
perform
audio
or whatever.
tracks you can-
But it's fun to watch it with no
I'm not
music.
gonna watch it unless it's Danny Elfman music.
Well, we could probably rope him in. But
But
it's
that-
weird
yes.
to watch it with no score
There's
because
the
there's
weird
no movie
ambient
that's like
sound
this.
of just like the castle.
Just the sort of hum.
Right.
Yeah. And like where like someone's walking up the stairs and Dracula's like creeping up behind him and you expect the and instead it's just silence. And the
That's-
Dracula just grabs
Yeah.
him.
That's
very
very
shadowy.
scary.
It's very weird.
And then the other crazy thing is they were like, we should make one for Spanish-speaking audiences too. So at night when they rapped,
Oh,
they would
yeah.
use the same sets and
shot for
costumes and
shot,
stuff,
the
right.
seen movie with Spanish actors.
Wow.
Speaking
Have
in
you ever seen
Spanish.
that one?
Yes, a lot
I've
of
never
people
seen
think that one's better.
Really?
But Lugosi
Yeah,
is so good.
They're very similar. But the lighting's a little more interesting. It
Who
gets a
was,
little more stylized.
Who was Dracula in the
I don't know the guy's name.
Oh, wait a second. I've got a computer in front of me. I
Oh,
bet I can
boy.
look this up.
I will say this: the female lead of the Spanish Dracula is past and hopefully future guest Chris Weitz's grandmother.
Lupita Tovar, is that her
Yes.
name? Yes.
Wow.
Which is crazy. Carlos Villar as
Carlos
Conde
Villar.
Dracula. Sounds
Oh,
good.
And what else did he do?
Doesn't look like he had a long career. He's only got a few
He
movies.
did. Carlos Villar meets a Spanish gorilla.
A Spanish Harlem gorilla.
Yes.
You got to stick to the New York.
Sorry.
All right.
I never saw that original Dracula.
It's worth seeing if
They're
it's ever
really
like at a.
but he was a seducer.
Right.
That's
It's
a big
very
thing.
much a romantic, scary romantic.
And that's why I
thing.
didn't want to play.
That was
A
his
monster.
big downfall.
He wasn't a
He was like,
monster.
I'm a
No,
real
he
actor.
saw himself
I'm
as
a
a-
romantic lead. I'm sexy.
He's
I'm verbal.
magnetic.
Yeah.
Right.
The problem was he has this very thick accent, and so
What?
studios. if you really train your ear, you can pick it up. And studios are like, this guy can't like play
Yeah.
anything but Dracula.
I know. I mean,
Yeah.
the idea that this guy, never mind the accent. I mean, physically, he kind of looks like a monkfish.
Right.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and yet I understand that he was a leading man in
Right.
European cinema
And
Yeah.
and on the stage, right? He would do all his traveling Dracula stage
traveling
show.
drag.
Right. Which is such a weird thing to think about where it's like that's what happened to most actors is like their autumn years would be like reprising their most famous
Sure.
role in local theater. Like Jimmy Stewart did like Harvey for like 15 years.
Yeah, because there wasn't VHS. That's how
Right.
people would see the
go
movie.
Yeah, right.
That's it. That Laurel and Hardy movie that at this point has
Right.
already come out and
Yes.
been forgotten is about their last tour
Right.
together where they're doing the same old bits. Like
Or they might be adapting them to a radio play. Like
Right.
there were
Right,
so many radio plays that were made based on Alfred Hitchcock movies.
You'd have your shtick and you
Right.
put it in like wherever you could. Yeah. No, I mean that was the Lugosi thing was sort of like the vanity of like, you know, I will not succumb to being a lowly monster.
Well, which is
figure.
also like that's the most terrifying horror story in Hollywood, right? That's where you like, here's where I take my stand.
right.
And it's the worst decision you
Right,
can make.
Hollywood's
even
just
where
like,
you
that's
have a
fine,
vision
you
of
stand
yourself
right there,
that the rest
right.
of the world doesn't
Right.
have.
Karloff like had like no career beforehand, does Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein and like blows up. And then his next Universal monster is the Mummy. And the Mummy, he only looks like a mummy for like 5 fucking minutes. He rises from the tomb and then very quickly becomes a very suave romantic lead. And it's the kind of part that Lugosi wanted to play. And Karloff like took the monster role and then became the kind of actor that Lugosi wanted to be for the next several decades.
What was it that Bunny said when they're getting baptized and the chiropractor who's replacing Lugosi, who's now dead,
yes,
as a body double. And there's that gag where Ed Wood says, "Cover the bottom of your face."
Yeah.
And he's like, "It looks just like Lugosi.
Yeah,
it's uncanny."
head.
It's like, no, it's canny. It's pretty canny. It does not look like him at all. And Bunny says, "Have him say Karloff is a cocksucker." Right. Let's see if that works. Such a beautiful, like when characters in an ensemble like that, when the characters reveal that they have shared jokes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's such a
well, that's why that dancing scene
beautiful
is so great
grace
too.
note.
Where you're like, oh right, they're all so bought into all of it.
Right.
Like, they're all so cool with it. But
and that's revealed with such gentleness.
That's
like
because you're looking at it through Ed's eyes. That's why I think the movie is so brilliant. Right. Where it's like Ed sees Bella, he meets him, right? He knows something's up with him. Like Bella's a sad figure. He lives in this crummy house out in the middle of nowhere.
But there's that line where he says, "A big star like you must have tons of pictures lined up." Like he cannot,
can't fathom it.
No, right.
And then in that first when Bella goes off to obviously like take his heroin.
Right. You have that amazing sort of like shadow
he's
play.
like,
right.
And to Ed, like Ed knows something is up, but he doesn't really think about it that hard.
Yeah.
Do you guys know that I
love kids?
You guys know that I was a literary agent?
Yes.
In the 1990s?
Yes.
1994, I was working at Writers House Literary Agent when this movie came out.
Okay.
And do you know that I was the literary agent to Bruce Campbell, the actor?
Really?
Oh, If Chins Could Kill or whatever.
If Chins Could Kill.
Right? That was the book,
That
right?
was the book that I sold for him.
Damn.
Wow. That
Good
was a
job.
big book.
That book was everywhere.
Yeah.
Like anytime I was in a library, it would be prominently displayed.
Libraries.
Sorry.
Thieves.
They buy one book, these jerks.
These cock-sucking librarians. Eddie.
You don't even have to pay for membership.
If there are librarians listening to this now, let me tell you, stop stealing from me. John Hodgman Vacation and available in bookstores for sale so I can feed my children.
Wait, so was Bruce Campbell your agent to sort of complete the circle once you started writing books? That would be fun,
Well, he would have done a better job for me than I did for him.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, no, but it was a thing where like we had just gotten the internet in the office.
Yeah.
And first thing I did was type in my name.
Yeah.
Nothing came back. Next thing I did was type in Bruce Campbell because
5 million Angel Fire pages.
Yeah, well, exactly that, including his own. Right.
Sure.
So he had a GeoCities or something.
Yeah.
And he was before there was blogging. He was writing like, here's this weird story from when I was on set for McHale's Navy with Tom Arnold or whatever.
Right.
And he was a funny writer.
Right.
So
and
he'd
done it all. He'd been around.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I clicked the email thing and I said, have you ever thought about writing a book? I'm sure and it was the same things like, you must have dozens of movies lined up.
Right.
He's like, no, I'm living on a lavender farm in Southern Oregon.
Crazy.
I have all the time in the world to write this book. And so he did. And I also felt like, well, this is my big break.
Yeah.
Like, I've got a celebrity book. I've got a celebrity client.
Right.
Bruce Campbell, star of Evil Dead and Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
Right.
This was music to no ears in publishing in 1997
but
or 8 or so.
But that book did sell very well.
It did, of course, because people were dumb.
Right. Yes.
Like it's hard to imagine a time now.
Yeah.
When what we term as nerd culture or geek culture or film
niche-y,
culture or niche
right.
or anything. I mean, this was in the mid to late 90s. There was barely an internet at this time.
Yeah.
And, Bruce was this classic guy who, if he went to a horror movie convention.
Right. People go bananas.
People would go bananas in the convention hall.
Right. Yeah.
And in the lobby, he'd just be this shemp that no one would know who he was or care, And the people who were buying books at the time were lobby people. Yeah. They were, they're like, give me, I don't know these movies. These movies are this Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. Wasn't that show canceled? And I'd have to be like, yeah, but actually there wasn't much of an argument to make for that. But, but I would say, look, he's going to these conventions and he'll sit there and sign things that people bring to him for 2 hours.
Right.
And the one thing that he's not signing is something that he owns, his book.
Well, and the other thing is you go like, okay, so maybe only 2% of the population in 1994 knows Bruce Campbell by name, but every single person in that 2% is going to buy that book. It's not like, oh yeah, right, Tim Allen.
You're describing the economic model of all podcasts as well, I might point out.
It's when like pop culture changes, where it's like they realize like, well, if you have a really engaged niche, you can produce the same numbers as someone who's known by everyone.
Most people might not know you, but you can be enough people's favorite thing. Like
it was, it was at a time when if people were beginning to acknowledge that a niche was something you could sell to. But it was also before. There was still a mainstream, though. Now there isn't.
Right. Sure. I think I've told this story in the podcast before, but I went to cover VidCon, the YouTuber social media vlogger convention, for a TV show that then got canceled after we produced the package of me covering VidCon. And we were in the lobby checking in, and it was just like Beatlemania times a billion. Like every 5 seconds, another kid with like good sneakers would walk out and would get mobbed by 47 13-year-olds and their moms. And we were like checking and be like, do you know who that? Do you have any idea who that is? Have you even heard of these people? And then I was like, oh shit, look over there. And it was Katie Couric, surrounded by like 6 bodyguards. Right. And she clearly was like, fuck, let's just walk quickly. I don't want to get spotted.
No one cared.
No one knew.
No one cared.
And you could see her going from being like defensive, like, I don't want to be bothered, to being like, why is no one bothering me?
Right.
But it was that thing where it's like every single person who's a fan of this fucker with the swoop haircut and the dunks is standing right next to him right now.
Right.
And they will pay any amount of money for anything he touches.
Well, you guys are familiar with the Janoskians? The Janoskians. Come on. A troupe of young prank video makers from
they're
Australia, I want to say.
Yes. Okay. I'm not familiar with these people.
In 2013, I'm taking an airplane.
They look like someone like just randomly cast a bunch of people to play YouTube stars.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought you were mispronouncing the name of the battle-obsessed alien bug species from Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, the Genosians, of course.
The Janoskians.
Yeah.
I took this plane to Chicago for a comedy festival. A couple of these doofuses got kicked off the plane.
Oh, were they doing a prank on the plane?
They were trying to pull a prank on the flight attendant. The flight attendant said, no.
What was the prank?
I don't
know. Do you think the pilot was like, we got a couple Janoskians and like air traffic control?
All I know is that they came, these 3 young dudes,
ironic hijacking,
came giggling down the aisle
to
take their seat wherever they were sitting.
Yeah, right.
And then there was a lot of whispering among the flight attendants. And then they came giggling back up the aisles. They were escorted off the plane.
Wow.
And then the pilot got on and said, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be delayed for a few moments. A couple of passengers had to be escorted from the plane. They were not the kind of people we like to have flying. They don't deserve to fly with us today, frankly.
Wow.
Seriously. Like it got heavy. But then I landed, and on the other side, everyone getting off the plane was like, what was that? What was that? I said, it's the Janoskians, these YouTube kids. Mm. And they were coming to do something completely different. They're not part of the comedy festival.
Yeah.
But they finally arrived. They got the next flight. And they were staying in my hotel.
Oh, boy.
And I had never seen this happen before. But by the next day, there was a constant vigil of hundreds of teenagers outside the hotel.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
All the time. Like if you were, and and they were just waiting for them to come out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not exaggerating, like hundreds of young people sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, this is the kind of thing you would think, like the Beatles. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, anyway. People knew about Ed Wood in mainstream because this movie came out in 1994.
Sure.
People did not know generally who Bruce Campbell was.
Right.
And it was that
they might have heard of the Evil Dead, right? Like that.
But I was definitely Ed Wood to Bruce Campbell's Bella at that point. I was just like, this is so incredible, Mr. Campbell. Thank you so much for having me. I was taking the time. I was like, sure, kid.
But here's a movie about people who were not popular, successful, nor critically supported.
Right.
You know, it wasn't like, oh, they were the
they're
sort of
forgotten, essentially.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, the thing about Plan 9, there's two. Bride of the Atom, I guess the funny thing. Have you seen the movie? Have you guys seen these movies?
I've seen Plan 9. I've seen Plan 9.
I've seen Plan 9. Yeah. I've seen all 3 of the movies that are in this film.
This movie, essentially, the structure is...
It's 3 films. Right. Glen or Glenda, Bride of the Monster is what it was initially called in Plan 9. And Bride of the Monster, really, it's just the thing where Bella is like flopping around with the octopus that I guess
is it called Bride of the Atom or Bride of the Monster?
It was released
called
as
Bride of the Monster.
Some real deep internet knowledge right there. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Glenn or Glenda is a truly strange thing because it's not.
I've never seen it.
It's not like a schlock movie like the other ones.
No, it's a real like song of his heart.
Yes,
yes,
and he's in it obviously, but then also it has these cuts to Bela Lugosi as a weird scientist man who's pulling the strings.
That's pull the string.
Right. And all this stock footage of like buffaloes
running
by where you're like, I mean, that's the one that is aggressive outsider art. Like, where you're just like, I can't understand how anyone ever thought this was
That's one of my
releasable.
favorite little like scene more slits is the early chunk of the movie where he's working on the studio lot
and he
doing
sees
odd
the stock
jobs.
footage guy.
The stock guy brings him in. He's like, what would you make out of this? And he's narrating how he would work it into a narrative.
right. Yeah, because the octopus is going to be his big climax.
Right.
And that's what's so good about this ways. I mean, Karaszewski and Alexander are such good writers. They did American Crime Story, right?
Yeah.
They did other things. Like they're so good at weaving all that in, like organically. So when he then writes the script with the octopus in it, like 50 minutes later, like
where he got that idea,
course, right? Yeah. And then Plan 9, I feel like it's not just that it's so crummy, but it's also the Bella thing, the dentist thing.
Right. It became a movie where you could see
chiropractor. I'm sorry.
The guy's so big he couldn't come out of the grave. The actor died, so they hired a chiropractor. Like the behind the scenes stories.
You're telling stories to each other as you're watching this thing where you're like, you won't believe like what is the backstory here. Right.
Yeah. Unpacking Plan 9 is a lot more fun than watching Plan 9.
Right. And Vampires in it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Plan 9. I mean, a lot of these movies are just conversations mostly. Like in
very talky.
rooms.
Can't afford anything more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh God! I love it when Dolores comes in and plays the secretary, and he's like, "That was great," and she's like, "I know it was."
That whole chunk of her like coming in asking for her motivation. He's like, "You're a secretary. You're a file clerk. You're a file clerk. You're going to file some things."
Oh boy. Right. There's just enough regular person in Ed Wood for him to not seem like a total space alien.
Right.
Like when he gets frustrated, you're like, okay, I'm glad the guy's frustrated because this obviously is beginning to mount on him.
But I think that's the reason, like the thing that differentiated Ed Wood from a bunch of other guys is that like this was never hack work for him. Like he was these are all opportunities for me to like
big picture.
Right. These are opportunities for me to really say something.
Right.
And the whole sort of Orson Welles thing that like he views himself as
obviously
a guy.
That scene is wonderful. Yeah.
Right. Which, I mean, this is a thing that I love is that...
It's your man, Vincent, Ben.
Ben's best friend, Vincent D'Onofrio.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Plays Orson Welles.
Are you a D'Onofrio?
I mean, he's real into the Kingpin.
I'm super into his performance as Kingpin. We also went to the same high school.
Really?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Ben tweeted at him, and D'Onofrio retweeted.
He did.
But didn't give a follow back.
Oh.
No follow back.
But that's okay. I'm going to get...
1 out of 2 ain't bad.
I'm going to get D'Onofrio on the show someday.
You think so, Vinny?
Talk ditches.
Sure. Yeah, we'll talk some ditches.
One time, my children, I live in Park Slope, Brooklyn, and my children decided to have a stoop sale and sell off some old books and stuff. And
IMAX.
You know what?
It's the done thing in Park Slope.
And maybe it was also a lemonade stand. Maybe it was
it's like a combination.
Taco Bell and Pizza Hut. Yeah.
Side by side.
Yeah.
And they were youngish. They couldn't just be out there on the street without having someone there. And boy, was I glad that I was there to keep an eye out because at some point I've noticed this guy is just standing off to the side, just like watching my kids for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And then a really weird detail was that he was smoking a cigarette, but he was keeping the cigarette behind his back. So every now and then he would just puff on the cigarette and then put it back behind his back. Just kind of watch my kids sell lemonade and kind of nod along and take it all in. And it wasn't getting a real sense of menace necessarily, but there was definitely an odd vibe. Yeah. And I realized, oh, that's Vincent D'Onofrio. That's fine. The D'Onofrio
is just his way of being.
That's just him being out in the world.
I definitely remember seeing him in situations like that in the early 2000s in New York City.
Like, oh yeah,
like in his like criminal intent years, where it's just like, oh, who's that weird guy? And he'd be like, oh, that's famous character actor Vincent D'Onofrio.
It is so weird that he was on a Law and Order show, where he played a Sherlock Holmes guy, who would like look at the air and be like, the killer was left-handed, or whatever, like, shit like that.
But he was sort of this like regular kind of like uneasy presence of like Brooklyn and downtown Manhattan in those years.
Yeah.
They cast him, I think, because of a physical resemblance to Orson Welles.
Yep. Certainly not for his voice.
Obsessed with Orson Welles and is like, this is like, I want to like really represent this man in this one scene. They shoot it. He doesn't sound enough like Orson Welles.
Right.
They dub him with Maurice LaMarche.
With the brain.
Voice of the brain.
He is the brain.
And he's
the
Orson
premier
Welles
Orson Welles impersonator.
Every time there's a cartoon character that sounds like
our
Orson
age.
Welles. Yeah.
He is what Orson Welles sounds like to me. Like, I mean, when I hear Orson Welles, I'm like, you could maybe lay it on a little thicker.
Do you know that like this becomes D'Onofrio's like Waterloo, that he couldn't get the voice right and he keeps on trying to play Orson Welles and he
Vinny.
eventually self-financed, directed and starred in a short film.
No.
That's like Orson Welles getting ready for like a Mercury Theater
like
production.
5 Minutes, Mr. Wells
5
or
Minutes, Mr.
something,
Wells
right.
or something. And he got the voice down, like to his credit.
I bet his voice wasn't even that bad. And I'm going to say this right now.
I'd love to hear
I love
it.
that scene.
Yeah.
It's a little
But
distracting.
it's really jarring.
Oh, you mean the dubbing
Maurice
itself?
LaMarche.
Yeah. It is. Well,
and I love Maurice LaMarche.
Right.
Yeah.
I love the brain.
I love the brain, but it is the brain.
But it is such a bit
Yes.
Yeah.
that it doesn't feel right.
It
And
does
this is
give it a weird sort of mythic weight to it because
Well, I
it feels otherworldly.
in the scene,
but it
Orson
doesn't
Welles
feel-
is
it
trying
has a
to
certain
take over the
dreamlike
world.
quality.
Yes, he
I
is
mean,
trying
that's
to take
right.
over the world.
I mean,
Same
he
thing
is
he's doing
plotting,
every
right,
other night.
right.
Right.
No, you're right.
But D'Onofrio really does look like Orson Welles.
And the mannerisms, all of it.
It's
I mean,
acting. It's
right.
not just what he looks like.
Yeah, I remember my
The way
mom
he's lit,
like, being
all the,
like,
you know, the-
when I was watching this movie for the first time,
Because
like,
Orson Welles was lit a very specific way, even
Every
if he
time,
was sitting
no matter where
in
he
a
was.
bar,
Yes.
working on getting
Touch of
funding for
Evil.
Don Quixote.
Right,
yes,
Yep.
right. No, he'd always bring in a fill light. Someone was telling. I was talking to someone
Some
who
frozen peas.
who worked on one of the Mission Impossible movies, and they said Tom Cruise, a fan comes up to him, will always stop, take the picture with him, but he'll make a lighting guy run in and hold up like a key light.
Are you
Oh,
kidding
really?
me?
Yeah.
And I was like, that guy's a fucking pro.
yeah, because he's a pro.
He's giving him a good photo. He knows his angles. He's like,
I
can you
know
just
that-
come in here and just 3/4 right here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he probably wants the other people to look good too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Boy, it's not often that people will ask for a photo with me,
Uh-huh.
but
No?
not well, maybe when
You're
I'm
very,
on
like-
tour.
Yeah, you're
when
very
I'm on-
visually
right, right.
recognizable.
when I'm on
person.
tour,
Yeah.
like when I'm on tour for like Judge John Hodgman, we'll
Mhm.
do a meet and greet after, and then there'll be some photographs.
Sure.
But people just like I feel very happy that I've spent some time in front of the camera, so I know a little bit of how light works
Uh-huh.
because people have no idea.
Yes.
Like they backlight themselves all the time.
All the time.
Just a little inside baseball.
Little light.
I've told the story about.
How do you feel about the fact that Vincent D'Onofrio, as the Kingpin, is currently the acting Attorney General of the United States?
See, that's okay.
That seems a
It
controversial
feels
choice
like a conflict of interest
by Donald
also.
Trump
Yeah.
to choose Vincent D'Onofrio.
He made it clear, though, as the Kingpin.
As the Kingpin.
Right.
as whatever the fuck his name is, Whitaker.
Do you know what I find funny about this? Like at the
It's uncanny. You want to say uncanny?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about like Bela Lugosi looks like this chiropractor.
No,
These
it's
guys
100%.
look a lot.
It's 1 to
alike.
1.
Yeah.
What I find funny about this is at the time we're recording, Matt Whitaker is
Matt
the
Whitaker.
Acting AG.
right,
Yes, right.
AG. By the time this episode comes out,
Who knows?
even odds that Wilson Fisk is actually
Right.
the
Yeah,
Actually,
acting.
he
The
stepped
joke won't
out of
be
the
this
pages
guy
of comic
looks
books.
like
Right.
him. It
Yeah.
will be literal Marvel supervillain
Yeah,
Wilson
My
Fisk.
first
Yeah.
act is to crush the spider.
Right. Stiltman will be head of agriculture.
Oh,
Sure.
I like Stiltman.
Boonton High School was the high school.
Uh-huh.
Boonton,
Yes.
New Jersey was where the Misfits recorded their first album, Walk Among Us,
Right.
which references a lot of these films.
Yes, the Misfits have Ed Wood song.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
Boonton, New Jersey is famous for being the only city in the United States of America that actually is located entirely within one boot, right? It's an old dirty boot in a
In
river.
a ditch. In a
Well,
ditch.
Yeah, with a population of 4,000.
What happened to that town is then they flooded
It's a
the
port
boot.
key.
They flooded.
They flooded
It's
the
a port
boot.
key. Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
It's a battered old port key on a hill.
So the former town that was built in a boot is under the river now.
Oh, wow.
Apparently
so
your-
there's like an Atlantis
Your
type.
waters were the
Sunken
first
boot
to be
city.
chlorinated. I'm reading a Wikipedia
That's
entry
true.
for
Yeah.
Boonton, New Jersey.
Wow.
They have
Boonton, New
they have
Jersey.
a site for where the chlorination happened.
Right. The motto is a great place to live and work, which, you know,
There's a
maybe
question
could
mark.
Take a second
We could
pass at that.
workshop that a little bit more. Maybe something a little bit more specific.
I just think it's a great place to live and work. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, We are a sunken city. We're the Atlantis of New Jersey. We can come up with something a little bit more. Like even the Atlantis of the Garden State.
Toxic
A
Avenger
chlorine-soaked ditch hole.
Toxic Avenger?
was discovered at my high school because he was a janitor, and they said, put him in a movie.
When you said that, I thought you were kidding.
No, that's true.
That wasn't actually a Toxic Avenger.
Actually, the Toxic Avenger.
Yes.
I thought that was a joke when we talked about that.
No. He was like, we used to call him Melty. And then he got booked.
All right, I can't even
I
keep
don't,
track
I
of
don't know how to
this
track this anymore.
No, New Jersey is all satire anyway. It's a very ironic state.
Ben did grow up in Tromaville.
Is Boonton, New Jersey in pork roll territory or Taylor ham territory?
Ooh, good question.
Or no, Taylor Ham.
Taylor Ham.
Taylor Ham.
Yeah, well, you are dead to me.
Get out of here, Ben.
Wow.
John is shaking with rage.
This
You could have given me some warning.
This is one of those movies that's hard to talk about because it is just like, oh, it's just perfect.
Well,
Here's
we talked-
another scene that's perfect.
Right,
What's wrong with
We
Ed
talked
Wood?
about a lot of
Nothing.
the
I don't
scenes
think
I
there
feel like
is.
that
Yeah.
particularly strike. I'm trying to think if there's
Right.
anything else where I'm like.
I mean,
that's,
I'm
you know.
trying to think of like other elements I feel like
I am
we
Crispo.
haven't talked about. Yeah,
I
mean,
like that the disgraced senator from Godfather 2 got work as a Baptist preacher.
Yes.
I also like what's his name, Mike Starr, the guy who plays the
Yeah.
producer, who's like, look, I make crap. Like I already
Yeah.
saw the poster in New Mississippi or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah,
that
he's
guy
so
is
great.
very funny.
So a thing I find interesting, just because I'll bring this up later, but I have seen the actual Christine Jorgensen story, the one where
Oh, yeah.
Sure,
the company
right.
she actually sold the rights to, which was slightly more respectable,
Right.
but a real kind of like schlocky melodrama company. So they weren't like schlocky, like, genre films, but it was like ripped from the headlines, true melodrama stories. And that movie feels like the kind of thing that Burton is then riffing on in Big Eyes.
uh-huh.
Is that
right.
sort of like
Kitschy.
weird,
There's
like
a kitchen sink
sub
drama
Douglas
thingy.
Sirk,
Right.
sort of like real tale of like, can you believe it?
That movie is boring.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Boring is the opposite of interesting.
Well, interesting. I call it interesting eyes.
The other one that I saw that I had never seen, the other Tim Burton movie that I had never seen recently, was Big Fish.
Oh yes.
Sure. Another big one.
And I know you guys are going to cover that.
We are.
But now that we're, it's like, yeah, it feels as though this movie, Mars Attacks, then he goes into retreat mode.
Right. Then Sleepy Hollow, then it's Planet of the Apes, and then Big Fish comes after that.
Big Fish is him sort of sneaking out, being like, can I be? I mean, that was the one that
It felt
was
like he was
tipped.
taking another.
Here's a movie
Yes,
with real
it was
people
tipped
in it.
as like
Right.
his sort of Oscar coming out movie, where
Right.
it's like, yeah, here finally the critics and the audiences and the awards voters are all going to like shower this with attention,
And it got
then-
nominated for Best Score,
Sure,
and it did okay.
did okay.
And I saw it 10 times in theaters.
That's
I was
bizarre.
obsessed with it when I
Really?
came out. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
had
think
never
it's
cried during
okay.
a movie, and that movie just destroyed me in the last 20 minutes, and I was like, I gotta keep on getting this
that,
fixed.
that movie makes me cry. I think the
Yeah.
ending is lovely, and
ending, I
like
think, is
I
perfect.
think,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's okay.
It'll
I
get
haven't
its own
seen it
episode.
since I
It'll
saw
get
it.
its own
So,
episode.
what did you think,
What did
John?
you think?
I saw it in an unusual circumstance. It was being screened.
On the back of a big fish on someone.
Yes, exactly.
It was hard to follow. You had to swim real fast.
Scale-o-vision. Right.
I was seeing it in underwater Boonton, New Jersey.
Sure.
No, I had
choice.
I went to a wedding in Puglia, Italy.
Oh.
Drew Scott, one half of the Property Brothers, got married and invited me to his wedding.
Are you serious?
Are you friends
Are
with
you
both of
friends
them?
with them?
I'm friends with both of them.
Wow.
How did you become friends with the Property Brothers?
Well, some people follow me back on Twitter.
Sure, right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Hey,
Like
it's not like
D'Onofrio,
Benny
no.
over here.
Yeah. I still haven't cracked the D'Onofrio code.
Yeah.
But the Scots are fun guys.
Yeah.
And somehow they invited me to, well, I say they, but
It's just one of them,
he-
but
just
they are a
one.
unit.
He and his lovely bride Linda invited me to their wedding in Italy. I'm like, I can't not go.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
and I had an extra day there, and Drew was like, "Come on over to our villa." Most everyone's gone home, but the family and I are going to watch a movie.
You just watched Big Fish in his
Watch
villa.
Big Fish.
Wow.
Is this like this is recently, within the last few
Yeah,
years?
this spring.
So they were just like, what should we watch tonight? I guess Big
It's
Fish.
his favorite movie.
Wow.
It's his favorite movie.
That's
And I was
nice.
and I
That's
was
nice.
like, wow, it was obviously an unusual to see Big Fish Under the Stars projected off his computer onto a screen.
Huh.
But it was kind of appropriately surreal and magical.
Say, that seems like a fairly good environment to see that movie. Right.
So I enjoyed it very much.
I'm a big fan. I don't think it's perfect, but I do think that was another attempt at a big evolution for him. I mean, you have the human
and was
real
he punished
world,
or rewarded for that?
I think
sort of in the middle.
I think in the middle.
It wasn't like enough of a bomb for him to
that's
absolutely.
The problem.
Right.
I think when you're a guy like that who's had such highs, if it's middling, you're like, I don't know. I guess I should like go back to the other stuff, you know?
Right.
And I think the other thing is he's always offered that kind of shit. Like, he's never going to have a shortage of people going like, do you want to reboot, like, you know, like the fucking this or that, you know?
Right.
Do you want to do a...
Please Believe It or Not or whatever.
Right. There
like
are always
those things
properties that
he gets
people are coming to him and saying like this. And he's like, I don't know, I guess I could use that as a vehicle to make this thing, you know? I guess I could use that. That gives me access to this technology or this shooting location or this actor or whatever. That I think it's like, I mean, we talked about this in other episodes. We'll talk about it in other episodes. But like in the early 90s, he was like developing a lot of stuff that was like weird passion projects that all now have seemingly like fallen by the wayside that he's not pursuing.
Which of those would you like him to revisit?
There's the one...
understanding that he's grown, he's in a different place in his life, maybe he's not interested, but what was the one that you wish...
What's it called?
What was the one that got away?
So The Iron Boy? It's based on a manga, and he was going to make it as a musical, and Sparks wrote all the songs.
Right.
Oh, cool.
The Melancholy Birth of the Iron Boy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
What's your fish that got away?
See,
what's your big fish that got away?
I'm not a Burton guy like the way that Griffin is.
It's very funny. I liked it a lot, John. I'm trying to think the other ones. I mean,
do you know what
came really close.
You know what he was going
really
to
bad.
make instead of this? And
What?
he dropped Mary
Riley. Right.
The sort of Jekyll and Hyde from
That was developed as a Tim Burton
with
project.
Winona Ryder.
Right.
And the studio was like, we're hiring Julia Roberts. And he was like, all right, forget it. I'll go do something else.
Star of Amazon's Homecoming.
That's true.
Yes.
Formerly a podcast.
Hey, you think someone will make
Mm-hmm.
someone will make a very visually distinctive podcast about Blank Check? Like where it's like all spiral staircases and shit?
Yeah. Sam Esmail's been talking to us.
Well, those of you listening at home can't see that this room is full of spiral staircases. This is a kind of an M.C. Escher upside down.
I insisted.
Mindscape.
It's good for acoustics, not autistic. What is the matter with me? No, I got it. The only other thing I want to talk about in the movie is the ending.
Yeah, I'd like
Unless
to
there's
talk. I'd like to talk just very briefly at the beginning as well, because I think the beginning is such
I'd like
a
to talk
smart.
about the middle.
Okay, cool.
All right,
so
we got it
then we'll
covered.
knock it
Cool.
out.
What order should we do it in?
Probably middle
ending
first.
Yeah, all right. What about the beginning?
No, I just think it's such a smart table setting, and I don't know whether this was in the script or his idea, but I think it puts a perfect frame around the movie and the sort of pitch it's going to be at and the tone and sort of the kind of film it's riffing on, even if you haven't seen those movies. Because starting with the Criswell rising from the coffin
and the
tone of
Hollywood
his
set
performance,
thing. Yeah,
this is one of the
played by the very, very talented but appropriately unemployable Jeffrey Jones.
Extremely unemployable.
Hollywood's probably most talented pedophile.
One of the most wildly unemployable men.
I think there's
stiff competition, unfortunately.
Well, let's not use those words.
Industry of scumbums. Monsters.
Not even scumbums.
Crumbums.
Not even crumbums. Scumbums.
Is this the first? No,
Sandpackers.
what's the first Jeffrey Jones?
Beetlejuice.
Right. We should have talked about this on Beetlejuice.
We talked about it on Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
Which we've already recorded. I mean, all these things.
Okay, so you were saying Criswell
I think
emerges from the coffin.
Right, and you're like, even if you didn't grow up watching guys like this, his performance is such a certain type of entertainer.
Yeah.
The language with which he's speaking, the terrifying true tale,
Yeah.
believe it or not, of Edward D. Wood, it like really sets the tone. And then
and that miniature house that you go
that's
pushing
the other
on.
thing. You have all these models, the beautiful the title cards on the gravestones, which is also just nice.
Love
It's like a fucking practical thing that
well,
you
the
like.
practicality is what's so fun about it in general.
And then that great transition from
I love that
the
fake
model
rain,
houses, then
the
you
look
have
of
the
that
stop
fake
motion
rain.
tentacles and everything.
Yeah.
And then there's the beautiful transition from like that to now we're in a real.
How come they didn't get a stop motion tentacle into Big Fish? Did they have one in there?
Because that's at that point he knows
It's all
CGI.
CG.
All right. Oh, sorry, you were saying.
No, I just think it's like artificiality, height and you're seeing what in Ed Wood's mind his movies would look like.
Right.
This is like full Tim Burton artistry.
Right.
And then it literally brings you down to earth to like rainy theater.
Yeah.
Here's Ed Wood. Like now you understand what he is seeing in his mind's eye. And I just think it like lays everything out perfectly. And I like that at the end they bookmark it with the like reverse footage of Criswell going back into
Right.
the coffin.
Right.
Eddie.
That's what you were going to talk about at the end, David. You just stole your thing.
Anything about the middle you wanted to get to?
I love how it connected the beginning to the end.
It does do that
It
very
does.
well.
It's a great bridge
seamlessly.
between the
Yes.
really
two.
weaves the two together
That was
in a
my
very
favorite
satisfying
part.
way, right?
Yeah,
That's
the
good.
middle was
Middle.
great.
Good,
amazing.
good, solid middle.
Because I was like, how is this going to end? Right?
Yeah,
And then
sure.
the end came.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kinda
it
answered
And,
its
and the
question
middle
for you.
was kind of a bridge to that.
You were like, how's this going to end? And the movie was like, we'll get to that.
Right.
Hold your horses.
Well, I consider the opening credits to be the beginning of a movie. The entire movie is the middle,
Right.
and then the closing credits are the end.
For me, a movie ends, if you ask me, and this is just my opinion,
Sure.
a movie ends after the end credits have finished rolling.
Right.
That,
You're
for
saying
me,
that's it.
that's
it.
the end of the movie.
And the lights come up,
Wait
and
a
the
minute.
guy comes out sweeping
What
up
about the
popcorn.
post-credit sequence?
Well, I mean, this is where it gets tricky. So, and once again, I don't want to get political here. For me, if there is a post-credit
Get ready
sequence,
to cut this out, Ben, just in case he gets too political.
the movie ends after that. And if there isn't a post-credit sequence, it ends before that.
Obviously, we're
after
going to
the
have
end
to cut
credits.
that out. That's
Fair.
way too inflammatory.
That's for me when a film ends.
And we're back.
So the ending. No, just
What did you want to say about the
just
ending?
well, the loveliness of everyone being collected together at the theater, but just the one of the great lines that we all reference
is
to
the one
this
I'm
day.
gonna be
This is the one
remembered
I'll be
for.
remembered for,
Yeah.
and the like guilelessness of it,
Mhm.
and that it's also true. This
Right.
is the one he's
That's the
remembered
beauty
for,
of
right?
it.
Yeah.
And it is, yeah, and that he gets to
Tor's,
give you.
Tor's family,
Tor's
his
whole
wife and son. I want to know what that actor who played the son is doing now. He had a real look to him.
No,
That's Chris Pratt?
He should have been in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory if it only made it a few years earlier.
Yeah, he had a little gloop to him.
George Amel Steele in a great fucking performance.
He's so
He's
good.
great.
That
It's great
first
that it's like
scene-
one wrestler playing another wrestler.
That first
too.
scene
Like,
where
that's it.
Ed Wood's like, I want you to be in the picture. He's like, I'm too ugly for movies. Like,
Yeah.
you know, where he's lying on his
But
front.
he just like sees the thing in everyone. The other, I mean, at least Marie is great as.
I just love the thing
Vampira.
where Tor has all the lines because no one wants to speak in the movie.
There's that, right,
The
there's that
guy's
thing where he says,
Why
it's
is he
unintelligible.
saying-
Yeah. And he goes, well, Lugosi's dead. Vampire won't speak. We got to give someone the dialogue.
Oh my
Like
god!
everything's so logical to Ed, you know?
Yeah.
Like he never gets like, I mean, that's that other beautiful piece of writing is they walk out of the theater. He feels like he's walking on sunshine.
Right.
Because it's like the first
And
screen
maybe
of his,
the only movie that does not use that song.
this might be the one.
Right.
But it's like this is the first premiere of his life that didn't end with like tomatoes being thrown at
Right.
him.
Do we know why they're all rioting in that middle
Yeah, that
premiere?
was a
Is that
weird-
explained?
Why
I
is
think it was just like
Like it's
that's
just a free
crummy
crowd,
theater,
right? That's just like where's the movie,
Bad
and they're
kids.
rioting. Yeah.
No, I'll hear like interviews with like people who grew up in that era being like the theater was a madhouse. Like it was just children
yeah.
and they'd play like
And
six
they're just,
B
like-
movies in a row.
Right, and they're just like eating candy and drinking
throwing
soda.
shit.
And right. Yeah.
Like it's like a schlock theater.
No,
you know?
I get it. It's just sort of, it's such a thing when they open the door and it's like
Right.
absolute chaos.
But he feels that sense of victory, and he
Eddie.
loves the people he's surrounded by. And he like says to Patricia Arquette, like, "Let's go get married. Let's
Oh, I
drive
love
out
it.
there." And
His
she's like,
car
"But it's
with the-
raining and the
right.
hood is broken." And he
It
was
was
like,
like-
"I'm sure it'll clear up the second we turn the
Yeah,
corner." Like
that's
the
a-
beautiful
yeah.
optimism
It
of
is.
the guy,
It is.
and that he found someone who like loved him for who he was.
Yeah.
Sure. All of the other thing, all of the rehab stuff, like, and that,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's also unjudgmentally handled, as everything is in this movie.
And I
Yeah.
love that when the final footage he shoots with Bella is like the one time that he's kind of soberly seeing everything. I mean, Depp plays it really well, where it's like he's doing this just for Bella.
Mhm.
So Bella has something to live for. This
Right.
isn't him being like,
I can get this movie.
right, I'm
Like,
using
I'm
you.
gonna get this to make money here and
right.
do that.
It's
right.
like you probably have a week left, so I want you back in your element to feel like you're a star again.
right. That was very beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a beautiful friendship they have. And I was gonna say,
It
I mean,
is,
you were saying
yes.
like the Vampiro thing. I mean, he's like
She's
kind of
so good,
a
Lisa
pest.
Marie.
She's so good in it. But he's kind of a pest the whole time. But the thing that I think finally breaks her down is that like he's also the first guy to call when her career goes bottom up.
Yeah.
Like he keeps on like trying
Right,
to get her in there.
right.
She's okay, value. Now I'm single. She's like a beautiful woman. Like use her in some way. And then it's like front page of the newspaper. They cancel her show.
Right.
She can't get arrested in town.
Right.
And she's just like, he still doesn't care.
Right, she
Like, he's
gets
still,
that it's not transactional with him.
Right.
He just is an admirer. He
Yeah.
likes right.
You know that Dana Gould was to Vampira what Ed Wood was to Bela Lugosi.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Dana
wow.
Gould interviewed her.
Oh,
and
really?
Then, and then became her friend and
Wow.
caretaker to the end of her life.
That's
Like
fascinating.
not live-in caretaker, but like
I do like that the movie acknowledges that Elvira kind of stole her bit.
Yeah, 100%.
But Dana has You should.
We should.
I mean,
get him on.
you should drop your embargo on Dana Gould. I
Yeah,
know that you
okay.
feel very strongly that he should never be a part of
So
this.
Ben, just make a note. Delete this episode. We're going to re-record next week with Dana Gould.
Yeah, perfect.
Great.
Because he's got an incredible story.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe, in the future, when Dana is getting on in years, you can be
I
Edward
would
to
love
Dana
to
Gould.
do that. I would absolutely love that.
Right.
No, it's just a lovely movie and a wonderful bunch of people.
I have one thing that I want to ask you guys.
Sure.
Okay.
I do not have an answer for this.
Okay.
It's not like I've got something, prepared.
Locked and loaded.
Mhm.
Right.
We all wish that Tim Burton would find that passion project that he
Mhm.
set aside in the 90s or has a new one today.
Yeah.
We also know that he's going to be flipping franchises.
Mhm.
He's going to be putting a fresh coat of paint on some beloved old properties.
Yeah, he'll make a He-Man next or whatever. Right.
What
What
you're in
would you
charge?
actually like to see him do?
What franchise
Oh,
would you have him
if
flip?
I had to let him loose at a franchise.
Yes.
Right.
like
Space
and just
1999?
yeah. All right.
He's never made a sci-fi. I know Mars Attacks is
Well,
a
and
sort
Planet
of a
the
sci-
Apes
but it's
is like
Space
the bad version
1999.
of that.
Hang on. I'm still marveling. I'm still reveling in this amazing idea. This full circleness
doing
of it,
Space
but it's
Lando.
it's also a great idea.
right.
Tim Burton's Space
The
1999.
moon goes flying off into the galaxy or
David
whatever.
Sims, ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen,
Yeah.
and
Anyone else?
non-binary people who are listening.
There is. I mean, the tricky thing with him is you go, okay, so it's like one of two columns.
That sounded like I was making a joke at the expense of non, but
No,
I
no,
don't say
I-
ladies and
yeah.
gentlemen anymore. That was for that reason, and that was a verbal tick, and I take it back.
I try to
David
just
Sims,
say,
listeners
yeah.
to this podcast,
I do folks.
Well, ladies
genius
and gentlemen, right. It's just sort of,
person.
it's like stage patter.
Yeah,
right.
right. Still, anyway,
No, I was
it's a
just.
genius idea, is what I'm saying.
It's a great idea.
Greenlit in the room.
That is, I think that's the line. I think
You might
want
want to make it
through.
like 2099. Just
Nope,
Paul.
1999.
all right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I don't mind.
It's all about the
Starring
second.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Now that's what I call music compilation. No, I think the better line of thinking is like, what genres has he not played in yet? Because there is that thing where you go like, okay, well, you either pick something that feels like it's right in his wheelhouse.
Right.
Like there was the rumor a couple of years ago that he was going to do a stop motion Addams Family, and you were like, they don't need to make that. We all have it in our heads. You
Right.
say it, and I can picture the whole thing.
Right.
It's a waste of time. But then the opposite thing of like, what if he did a take on something that you never think Tim Burton would do? You're like, but I know what that's going to look like too. So you kind of
Stop
want
stalling, Griffin.
What do I want him to
Tim
do?
Burton's The Tick.
Yeah, that's the answer. No, I mean, I'll
Not
tell.
the worst idea in the world.
No,
No,
I'll
no.
tell you. I think it would be cool to see him return to the superhero world, but do something like Dead Man. You know,
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
those weird sort of like pulpier, sort of mystical sci-fi
Son of Satan.
characters. Right,
Mhm.
right,
Right.
Do some Jack Kirby shit, Etrigan the Demon. I mean, I just feel like there are things like that where it's like it's a property, but it's not a hugely well-known thing, but you're getting in because it's the DC umbrella or
Right.
something. And give him a really functional like 3-act story.
Can Tim Burton make the correct Fantastic Four?
I don't think he's the guy, but
I
I
don't.
mean,
yeah. I mean, I would see his Fantastic Four circa whenever they want to make a Fantastic Four movie for the first time, right? You know, like
right.
whenever.
Why
it
can't
has-
we have one every year?
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that.
I mean-
if you offer me the choice, no more Fantastic Fours, and just every year there's someone else takes a crack at it.
Yeah.
I'd take the latter.
I feel like
But I mean, based on this
Yes.
movie and the sense of offbeat, off-kilter family that he was able to create
Yeah.
in this movie.
yes. There's a
Now
version
I'm
that you can
thinking,
see. Yeah. I feel like the logical end game here is that Marvel is just going to let Peyton Reed make the Fantastic Four movie.
Wouldn't that be an incredible
Yeah.
full circle?
That's what I'm hoping happens. And they let him make something that's fairly close to what he really originally wanted to make. Obviously, the landscape's changed. It would now have to fit into this larger machinery. But if they let him make a sort of like period stylized Fantastic Four movie, which I think at this point, the only way they could really work Fantastic Four into the Marvel Universe this late in the game
It's a
is
flashback.
to do a different time period, to do
And
an
they get
alternate dimension.
Alternate dimension, they
Right.
get sucked into
Alternate
dimension, they get sucked into our dimension or something. I don't know. You do a period movie and then there are people out of time.
But that's what I would love if you
that.
did a real kind of like.
I mean, give it to
you know,
Peyton Reed.
in like Flint, kind of.
I think Peyton Reed is I have to assume he's at least mentioned to Kevin Feige, like, one day if you want to do
I imagine
Fantastic
they're
Four,
talking about
I'm
it
here.
all the time.
I'm a proven guy for you. You know, yeah.
That's, I think, the end game here.
But what's your answer with Tim Burton?
My answer, I think Deadman. I think Deadman would be a cool thing. I'd rather see him pick something like that doesn't come with a tremendous amount of cultural baggage, you know?
Right.
Where there isn't a real strong preconceived notion of like, well, I know what the regular Dumbo's like.
Ben, you got one? You got a Tim Burton franchise flipper?
Is there a rave franchise?
I'm sorry,
movie
a
about
rave?
rave movie? Like, yeah.
Like,
do you just want like Tank Girl or something?
yeah.
Like something
Okay,
like
Tim
that. Some
Burton's
sort of
Tank
90s.
Girl?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm. All right.
I'm just trying to think of subcultures from the 90s that I would be interested to see
I see
Tim
what
Burton
you're
have a
saying.
take
I see,
on.
like a
So like
crust
rave
punk,
culture.
right.
I hear he's going to. Reboot the Singles universe.
Hey,
That'd be fun.
people making
His-
video
Matt
tapes.
Dillon's coming back.
his
Remember?
only
The
on-screen
Rupert-
acting appearance.
Was that
He plays in Singles the guy who runs the video dating service.
Tim Burton does?
Correct.
Right.
I have to leave. He did that
It
without
is
the
crazy.
internet.
I know. Well, we did do a Singles episode.
Speaking of
way
which,
back
I
when.
do have to leave. So
Yeah, let's play the box office
we're
game.
done. We're done.
Let's play the box office
We're just
game.
playing the
by
box
the
office
way-
game.
So we've heard all the pitches.
Mhm.
Tim Burton's Singles.
Right.
Tim Burton's Dead Man.
Yeah.
Tim Burton's Space 1999.
Mhm.
Yes. Obvious winner.
Folks listening within the sound of my voice, get ready for Tim Burton's Space 1999. Greenlit in the room. Absolutely
yeah.
going to
Wow,
happen.
that's the winner. Okay.
Wow.
Absolutely. I'm sorry.
People
You
don't
forgot
even
to
get
mention the introduction that you
obviously-
have ultimate greenlight power in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Well, when people find out that I agented Bruce Campbell's book, they're like,
yeah.
let's not second guess this guy again.
What was the widest this film ever went?
The widest this film ever went was 623
Wow.
theaters. It made a total of $5.8 million.
Yeah. Not great.
So obviously it did not make its budget back.
Did not cross over.
No, it didn't cross over.
Also, just weird to think about Disney making a film like this
It's
today.
crazy to think about Touchstone back in the day.
Yeah.
The weekend of September 30th it opened the New York Film
Okay.
Festival and
Wow.
it just came
It's
out in
the
the
opening
theaters.
film. Yeah.
It opened on 2 screens this weekend, so it's not in the top 5.
Mhm.
So your number 1 movie is a movie that I truly appreciate and love. It is a kind of like a white knuckle thriller / domestic drama, starring an Oscar-winning person,
Lady or a gentleman?
lady. I
Is
was
it
trying not to give you a lady.
River Wild.
Yeah, because I knew if I said lady, you would just know.
I had a feeling it was River Wild.
$10.2
With
million.
Law and Order's Benjamin Bratt.
Yes.
Bratt, Bacon, Strathern.
Strathairn.
It's got what a cast.
I'm
Curtis
just-
Hanson picture.
I always love when Strathairn's above the title.
He's above it.
What a good name to put above a title.
Do we say, is it Strathairn?
I don't
believe
know.
so.
David Strathairn.
I
That's
just
how
think-
I say it.
I think that name is fun to read, fun to say.
And
I have a great time every time I say Strathairn.
and,
Right.
fun to watch.
Fun to watch. A real actor's
An
actor.
actor's actor
Yeah.
is actor.
Actors love Strathairn.
Sure, who wouldn't?
It's royalty.
He's the Strathairniest of them all. Now, number 2 at the box office was number 1 the previous 2 weeks. It's a sci-fi actioner
oh, wow.
that I enjoy. It's
Of
an enjoyable
1994,
piece of
it's a
90s
sci-fi
marginalia.
action.
Yeah.
Did it get any sequels?
It must have. It didn't get any theater sequels.
It didn't become a big franchise.
There must be some straight to VOD. I don't know. Maybe not.
It's a 1994 sci-fi.
Based on a comic book, I believe. From a director that we've covered one of his movies. We've covered one of this director's movies. There was a directed DVD sequel starring Jason Scott Lee with the subtitle "The Berlin Decision."
And you'd be bad at this job. You'd be so bad at it.
I'd be bad at this job. Tank Girl?
It remains the highest grossing film for this actor, who is like a 90s star and was on Amazon at one point.
Oh, it's a Jean-Claude Van Damme film.
That's true.
Oh, I know it.
What is it?
Time Cop?
That's right.
I would be very bad at that job.
Peter Hyams' Time Cop. And Peter Hyams, of course, directed
Running Scared.
Running Scared.
Yes.
Now, number 3 is a film I did not know of.
Mm-hmm.
Saw Time Cop in the theater, also the Chelsea. I saw all movies at the Chelsea.
Time Cop's not bad. Ron Silver.
Not bad. Ron Silver.
Right, that's a big silver. Yeah.
So this
Silver was gold back
This
then.
is a film I've never heard of. Apparently, it is an erotic drama
How dare you?
pitched right at African American audiences.
An erotic drama pitched right at African American.
Yes.
Are you being sarcastic, or
No,
was it really?
I am not being sarcastic. It was a Gramercy picture, which I think was an old Universal label.
Yeah.
Starring Jada Pinkett, Bokeem Woodbine, Alan Payne. I've never heard of this movie. It was fairly well received. It came out. It made $20 million.
Bokeem Woodbine, another name that is
Just
fun to say, fun to
absolutely
read,
electric name.
pleasure to watch on screen.
Yeah, I love him. This was well received. I've never heard of it.
I don't think I have heard
And
of it
it
either.
really
Tell
is
me
one
the
of those
title.
things
This is the year of my 23rd year on Earth.
You were hot.
This is prime hot.
I can't believe.
I should have known this. I didn't have children. I
Prime
was going to
Hodge.
movies all
You
the
were
time.
seeing erotic
So I was
dramas
basically living at
constantly.
the Chelsea Theater.
It's
or
set
whatever
in
it was.
Houston. Does that help?
I don't think I know
It's
this
just sort of
story.
amazing to think of studios bothering to make
Yeah.
all kinds of movies back then.
They
where
would
they're
try shit.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
Let's say
Yeah.
it's called Jason's Lyric.
Oh, I do know that title. I have no idea what that movie
Right.
was, but I knew that title.
Yeah. So
Okay.
there you go. Number 4 is the Best Picture winner of 1994.
So it's Forrest Gump.
Yes,
Still going strong.
Still going strong in its 13th week. It's made $269 million.
My sister Romley watched that movie for the first time and very recently was like, "What the fuck is that thing?"
It is one of
And I
those
was
things
like,
where you're
yeah.
like, I can't explain it, but everyone was crazy for
It
this
seemed
thing.
fun at the time.
4-quadrant blockbuster.
Yeah.
You watch it now and you're like, is this offensive?
Right.
It's not just the way you're like, I don't get
No,
the
it's
appeal
offensive.
of
Yeah.
this. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, I think this movie is just nakedly offensive.
But she was like, I don't even know if that's good or bad. Can you just explain to me how that fits into the history of our culture and our species?
Right.
What was that?
It's like the ultimate baby boomer movie, but also it's this offensive comedy. I don't understand.
Right.
Anyway, Forrest Gump. What do you think of Forrest Gump, Jason? Jason. Jesus
John
Christ.
Hodgman, I guess.
Right, Sean Hunchman.
Oh, Jason's Lyric. That's why it was.
Yeah.
I don't know what Jason's Lyric made of Forrest Gump.
I have not seen it since it came out.
Wow.
And I remember being a
A
little
little turned off, right?
Well, I was turned off by its political point of view.
Sure. Yeah.
Hippies are bad?
Yeah. Hippies are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Promiscuous sex will end, you'll end up in the coffin or
What
whatever.
a fucking weird movie.
Very weird movie.
Very
Life
weird
is-
movie. But I love Tom Hanks so much.
Yeah.
I do too. Number 5 is another of the Best Picture nominees, a great movie about how wasps run and ruin the world.
Quiz show? Yes. Love quiz show.
Quiz show.
Movie.
Quiz show.
Great movie. Robert
rules.
Redford's Quiz Show, starring Ray Fiennes, John Turturro.
And the other guy, the guy from Northern Exposure, who's doing that bad
Yep.
Boston accent.
Rob Morrow.
Rob
Yep.
Morrow.
Whose daughter's name is?
I don't know.
Rabba? Two.
His daughter's name is Tomorrow. I
Two-
swear
two-
to you, his daughter's name is Tomorrow.
T.O.?
T.U., I believe.
That's one of those things that
Morrow.
it feels like you have been waiting 4 years on this podcast
Yep.
for someone to mention Rob Morrow. You had that fact
knew
ready.
that fact before I knew who Rob Morrow was.
They do have a daughter named too.
Thank you.
My wife grew up
Thank you.
in Atlanta,
Uh-huh.
and in elementary school, they had a fourth grade. They had a classmate, son of the local police chief,
Mhm.
Chief Hand. His son's name was Dixon.
Boy.
Guess how they made fun of him. Guess what his nickname was.
Dixon Hand. I'm trying to think of how you could work
You're not-
that into something.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy, right?
Dick-
They didn't even recognize the joke.
Really?
They called him Jupiter, largest of the planets, because he was husky.
Oh boy.
They were too.
It was right there.
They couldn't get themselves. They couldn't bring themselves to make a Dixon
Wow.
Hand joke.
Wow. Well, talking about dicks, you got a TV show called Dicktown.
Oh, I'm not sure that
When will that be? Will that still be far off on the horizon?
I'm not
Animation takes a long time.
we're told sometime in the spring of
Okay,
2019.
so it'll be
Okay.
So
Yeah.
there is a show that I'm working with David Reese,
past and future,
guest.
Yeah, we gotta get him back
an
on.
animated show for FXX.
Mhm.
Maybe by this time, FXXXXX. They
Maybe.
might add a few more X's.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
It's a fun little show and some
FXXX.
great voice
Dicktown.
acting by Griffin Newman.
Oh, you're in that
amazing.
one, huh? You snuck your little voice on there.
Snuck my little tush on that show.
And if this is the plug portion, you can also listen to me every week. Judge John Hodgman, a podcast from MaximumFun.org. And you can buy my book, Vacationland, now available in paperback at stores. Don't go to libraries.
I hadn't heard that it had been released in paperback yet.
Yeah,
I feel like you haven't been getting the word out about that.
Yeah. You can go to libraries and you can take it out of the library too. That's fine.
As long as you keep it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so we have a deal. Here's the thing. It's a special bonus we've got arranged with the publisher. If you buy the book, it frees you from the obligation to read it. So that's a good deal for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Right. You can just buy
There's
it.
no ticking
put it on
clock.
the
Yeah.
pile.
But if you borrow it from the library, you got to read it. That's how you pay.
I like the idea of you using your like 1 million plus social media followers to just fully take down the American library. You're just like, this is my battle.
You know, I really liked John Hodgman until that turn he took later. in life where
I
he
love
brought down
libraries.
libraries.
Just kidding.
Death to the
love 'em.
library.
You know, libraries are with such precarious ground, and Hodgman put his pressure on, and that was all it took.
When
They were
you
gone.
throw a Molotov cocktail into your local library, remember to sign it from John Hodgman.
I waved a withered
John
feather
Hodgman.
at their back and they fell over the cliff.
You know, it's like
But I do take responsibility.
in England, like King Edward IV, he kind of like he took all the monasteries. Now Edward VI, sorry, not fourth.
Yeah.
You want to be that, but
How
for
would you know
libraries.
anything about England?
Oh, get out of here! Come on now, right at the end.
Yes.
King Edward VI.
Thank
Look
you
him up,
all
people.
for listening.
Basically started the
Please
English
remember to
education
review,
system.
subscribe. Go to blinkies.red.com for some real nerdy shit. Thanks to Ange for Gudo for our social media, Lee Montgomery for our theme song, Jobo and Pat Rounds for artwork. Season 2 of The Tick, coming out at some point.
Cannot wait.
If you like this episode, it's like that for 10 episodes of a TV show.
Extra nipples.
Extra nipples. Spoiler, a lot of nips.
Nefarious Dr.
Nipsey.
Nipslip.
Yeah. Tune in next week for our
What's next week?
Mars Attacks
Oh,
episode.
yeah, Paul F. Tompkins.
Yeah, Paul F. Tompkins.
Is not welcome.
He will not be on the show.
Right, exactly.
Terrible. So tune in to see who we have as a guest on in his place
Right.
next week. And as always, I forgot to say this in May series on the films of Tim Burton. It's called Potterwood Scissorcast.